The stone pillars were still present, and the sovereign blood seal still hung in the air. But what they were seeing around them was different. There were black strands of chi coiling up ahead. Those black strands of chi were like countless sinister pythons that were constantly attacking the sovereign blood seal. Rumbling sounds rang out so loudly that it shook their ears and caused pain in their souls. Seeing this black mist in front of them made their scalps turn numb. That sinister energy felt like countless blades pointed at them. As long as they moved, they would be pierced through the heart. This should be the buffer zone of the sovereign blood seal that the old man mentioned. Constantly sealing the entrance of Devil Spirit Mountain, the sovereign blood seal receives this constant encroachment. Long Chen couldn't help being shocked as he saw the black mist constantly attacking the sovereign blood seal. Just what kind of existence did a sovereign have to be for a single seal that they left behind to have such power after being attacked like this for over 100,000 years? This zone was close to the sovereign blood seal, which made it safe. It was said that this safe zone was a semicircle covering hundreds of miles. Long Chen, in which direction should we go? Asked Bao Buping. Their divine sense was unable to pierce the black mist in front of them. They were all blind. Most people would choose to go along the edges here. So let's just go straight in. Perhaps this will lower the danger slightly, said Long Chen. Although the odds of this were very low, it was probably best to walk a different path from others. Looking at the sovereign blood seal behind them to determine their orientation, they continued onward carefully. All of them were suppressing their heartbeats, their breathing, and even the opening of their pores as much as possible. Even though the three of them had big guts, they didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless here. This was Devil Spirit Mountain. It was unknown how many peerless martyrs had died here in the battle back then. And it was also unknown just how many geniuses had died here in the past tens of thousands of years. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were tightly holding their broadswords, while Long Chen held the pot in his left hand and Blood Drinker in his right hand. This black mist could block their divine sense, but it wasn't able to block the danger sense the 9-star hegemon body art possessed. Long Chen was using those senses to advance. He had the utmost confidence in the 9-star hegemon body art, and it was the greatest factor that allowed him to dare to come to Devil Spirit Mountain. Even with this sharp danger sense, Long Chen was still advancing slowly and carefully. It took 4 hours for them to reach the point that the black mist began to fade and their sight restored. Long Chen waved his hand. Bao Buping and Chang Hao immediately stopped. The three of them hid behind a black rock, peering out of a crack to see the scene outside. Now that they were within Devil Spirit Mountain, they didn't dare to use their divine sense to avoid anyone sensing it. Using just their eyes was safer. They saw an unending mountain range. The mountains were barren, and it was impossible to see their end. Due to the rising and falling mountains, it was impossible to see what could be inside the gulches. Now that they were here, Bao Buping and Chang Hao couldn't help being a bit surprised. This didn't seem as terrifying as the land of death they had imagined. They didn't see a single powerful life form. Long Chen also didn't sense any danger. He was curious, and having a thought, he turned toward the black mist and crushed a medicinal pill. The medicinal pill transformed into powder that slowly floated toward the black mist. But once it did, the powder was suddenly blocked by some invisible energy. Seeing this, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's expressions changed. Long Chen nodded. As expected, it's a trap. What do you mean? Asked the two of them. This region outside the black mist has its own formation around it. It only allows people to enter, but not leave. My guess is that as soon as we try to leave, the formation will stop us and also alert the life forms of this world, said Long Chen gravely. He looked at the ground and saw a batch of dirt that was scarlet a few hundred meters away. That further confirmed his guess. Then we can't go back? Asked Bao Buping. He then shook his head and said, No, that's impossible. If it was impossible to go back, how did one of our disciples manage to return with word that this was a hoax? Furthermore, what about those people who managed to escape with treasures? There must be an exit somewhere. Long Chen shook his head. There's no chance of that. There's no way they would leave an opening in this formation. That's completely illogical. This is the territory of this world's creatures, and this formation was clearly established by them. If you put yourself in their shoes, Would you leave an opening? This is not a trial. There are mortal enemies. Hearing this, Bao Buping's burst of confidence vanished. It truly didn't make sense for there to be a backdoor. Then what do you think is going on? If there really is such a formation, how did 2 disciples of our heaven-splitting battle sect escape, as well as those lucky adventurers? Bao Buping and Chang Hao didn't bother wasting time thinking about it themselves. They directly asked Long Chen. Long Chen looked at the medicinal powders that were blocked from the black mist. This formation isn't something we should touch right now. I don't know how powerful it is, but this world's creatures aren't idiots. The power of this formation must surpass the power a Jade Core expert can possess to make it so even they are unable to get through it. As for why those 2 geniuses of our heaven-splitting battle sect could escape Devil Spirit Mountain, I feel like it's very likely to do with Split the Heavens. Split the Heavens has a barrier-breaking effect. Whether it's a formation, a magical art, or a shield, they become flimsy in front of Split the Heavens. Furthermore, the old man said that those 2 disciples were extremely powerful, not at all weaker than us. Bao Buping and Chang Hao nodded. This comforted them a bit. If this was the case, there was a high chance for them to get out. If a single disciple had been able to break out, then it should be no problem for the 3 of them. That's not right. What about those lucky adventurers? How do you explain that? Asked Chang Hao. Those adventurers weren't disciples of the heaven-splitting battle sect, nor did they know Split the Heavens. How had they managed to escape? This probably has to do with how one of our deceased seniors said it was a hoax, said Long Chen, sinking into thought. What about it is a hoax? I'm just guessing, so I can't be sure. But when the old man first told us about those people that returned from Devil Spirit Mountain with their cultivation bases advancing, their brilliant treasures, and their names resounding throughout the world, I immediately felt it was odd. Were those people idiots? Why would they start widely announcing that they had obtained treasures as if they were worried other people wouldn't know of it? In reality, none of those people had good endings. The majority of them were secretly killed by other experts, and those treasures transferred owners. There are even some who simply vanished. Basically, none of them managed to escape calamity. That also doesn't make sense. That sounds right. Those people really were stupid. Weren't they deliberately making other people greedy for their treasures and drawing killers? Chang Hao and Bao Buping both came to a sudden understanding. So that didn't make sense, and looking at this formation as well as how that disciple said it was all a hoax, I feel like those lucky people are most likely just a con made by the life forms of this world. They should have used some kind of method to control those people's souls, allowing them to bring out a few useless treasures. They had those people spread the word as much as possible to draw more people here, when in reality, they're just drawn to a death trap. Long Chen's gaze grew sharper and colder as he looked around. He smelled something was off. He felt like he was currently in the middle of some mysterious riddle. Just why had the Dark Era occurred at all back then? No one knew. There were a few legends that had trickled down from that time, but they were confusing and contradictory, making their credibility very low. Now that they had entered Devil Spirit Mountain, Long Chen's sense of crisis grew. It felt like a heavy rock was crushing his heart. Long Chen, the 2 of us are too dumb for this. Can you explain it more clearly? Bao Buping scratched his head. They didn't quite understand. It was no wonder the old man hadn't allowed them to enter Devil Spirit Mountain before. Their heads truly didn't work too well. What I mean is that those people that escaped only managed to do so because this world's creatures let them. They intentionally let them out to draw more people here. As for why they would do such a thing, we don't know yet. There's no need for you to think about this. All you need to do is follow me. If a single person was able to break out of this formation with Split the Heavens, there should be no problem for the 3 of us. But since we've come, we definitely can't leave empty-handed. Otherwise, the bosses would look down on us. We have to bring back some good stuff for them. Long Chen couldn't be bothered to explain too much to them. In any case, they wouldn't understand, so there was no point. As expected, their eyes began to shine as they thought of the heaven-splitting divine tablet. They were almost able to see the few bosses kneeling on the ground before them as they brought it back, their eyes popping out of their heads, and their mouths opening so widely that they were bigger than the rest of their heads. Their blood began to boil. Seeing them enter such a state, Long Chen hastily patted them on the shoulder and said, "Don't get too excited. This will probably be much more difficult than we thought. To be safe, each one of us should eat an aura-concealing pill and apply medicinal powders to conceal our presence. Let's also change into clothes that match the color of the terrain here." Long Chen took out 3 medicinal pills. After making these preparations, they stealthily continued onward. The mountain range was completely empty here. They didn't see a single person. But every now and then, they would see bloodstains that had almost lost all their color after the encroachment of time. They were sometimes able to sense the leftover aura of the deceased experts. Those stains told them that they could lose their lives at any moment. They definitely couldn't be careless. So they didn't go very quickly. Even after over 4 hours, they had only crossed a dozen mountains. But on the way, they had seen quite a few rotted corpses and broken weapons. Long Chen even saw the remnants of an ancestral item. Picking up one of them, he still sensed its terrifying pressure. From its shape, it should have been the fragment of a set of armor. Although it was only the size of a chicken's egg, it was as heavy as a mountain and incredibly hard. Such a terrifying ancestral item had been destroyed, leaving behind just this small piece. The battle back then must have been horrific. "Quick, get down." Long Chen's expression suddenly changed and he pulled the 2 of them into a crack in the rocks. They had only just hidden themselves when a terrifying pressure appeared. Long Chen pulled Chang Hao and Bao Buping into a crack in the rocks. He saw a strange figure in the air whistling over. It was a humanoid creature with wings. Its size was essentially the same as a human, but it had bat-like wings and its nose was slightly sharper. It had a mouth of sharp teeth, and its eyes glowed. It looked extremely terrifying. A winged devil? Long Chen was startled. This creature was extremely similar to the winged devils he had encountered in the Jiuli's secret realm. But the winged devils he had encountered in the Jiuli's secret realm had been tens to hundreds of meters tall, while this one was much smaller. This creature clearly had a protruding spot on its forehead that looked like a closed third eye. There was powerful energy flowing within it. But this creature rapidly flew by, and Long Chen also didn't dare to look too closely for worry of it sensing him. Looking in the direction it was flying, it was clear it was going to the entrance they had come from. "Probably someone exposed themselves," whispered Long Chen. The 3 of them stealthily crawled up to a slightly taller mountain. They quickly heard shouting and fierce whistling from the entrance. Although they had entered quite a while ago, they hadn't gotten that far. From here, they were able to still see the black mist. In front of the black mist was a man wielding a halberd and fiercely fighting that creature. He had done the same thing as many adventurers once they entered Devil Spirit Mountain. The first thing he had done was test his way back, which had activated the formation and drawn over this creature. At this time, Bao Buping and Chang Hao looked at Long Chen with admiration. If he hadn't warned the adventurers not to enter after them within the next 6 hours, the 3 of them would very likely have been implicated by this adventurer. That adventurer was a Jade Core expert. He was extremely powerful. But shockingly, despite his halberd being a king item, he was unable to do anything to this creature. The creature's wings had countless runes unleashing blinding light, and its sharp claws allowed it to fight the adventurer barehanded. Sparks flew and a metallic ringing rang out whenever its claws clashed with the halberd. Its claws and wings were both as hard as king items. "This creature doesn't seem as terrifying as I thought. I could definitely defeat it," said Bao Buping. Although it was powerful, its aura was not in the Jade Core realm. Bao Buping had absolute confidence in easily defeating it. "You're thinking too simply. That adventurer was most likely noticed because he touched the formation. In other words, he definitely caused information to be sent to the creatures overseeing this place. They knew it was just one ordinary adventurer, and that's not important to them. So they just sent an ordinary expert," said Long Chen. No matter how he looked at it, he felt this creature to be just like the winged devils he had encountered in the Jiuli's secret realm. That raised his alarm. The winged devils were incredibly powerful. Even after they had died, just their skeletons possessed terrifying combat power. Just how powerful did they have to be when they were alive? This winged devil was the same size as an ordinary person. It was likely that it was the lowest level of the winged devils here. It was probably just a regular guard who came to eradicate the invader. Ah! Suddenly, a miserable scream rang out, rousing Long Chen from his thoughts. He saw blood mist erupt as that jade core expert was torn apart by the creature. After killing him, the creature looked icily around. Carrying the adventurer's weapon, it flew away on the same path it came from. When it was near Long Chen and the others, Bao Buping wanted to attack it, but he was held back by Long Chen. Once it flew past, Long Chen said, "This place is too close to the entrance. It's probably within the area that they monitor. Let's continue onward and get further away before we decide to do anything." They slowly continued forward. The entrance grew further and further away. 6 hours later, another powerful aura flew by, and the three of them hastily hid themselves. As expected, another adventurer had entered and immediately tested whether he could return. As a result, he touched the formation, causing him to be sensed. This expert struggled a bit before being slain by another creature. In front of it, these Jade Core adventurers had no ability to resist. "Long Chen, what should we do?" Bao Buping and Chang Hao stared at the creature. Long Chen clenched his teeth. "Bring it down." After killing the adventurer, the creature gathered his weapon and flew away. But as it was flying, it suddenly saw a person in front of it. Bao Buping was blocking its path. "Long Chen wanted me to ask you if you're a winged devil," said Bao Buping. The creature's eyes shone with a fierce light. It opened its mouth, revealing a set of sharp teeth. Its mouth actually extended all the way to its ears. "Jijiji." The creature laughed sinisterly, a laugh that could cause a person's blood to turn cold. Its sharp teeth flickered. It looked like a demon and sent a claw at Bao Buping. "Jie, your father, taste my blade." Bao Buping snorted and slashed his broadsword. Bang! The creature's claws were shattered by Bao Buping's attack. It was not a match for Bao Buping. It let out a miserable cry, not having expected the Foundation forging Bao Buping to possess such power. The creature's aura was also on the level of the Foundation forging realm. Yet, it was able to slay Jade Core experts with ease. Therefore, it could be seen how terrifying its power was. But this power wasn't enough when compared to Bao Buping, who was at the 9th heaven stage of Foundation forging. The creature turned to run, when sword chi slashed down from the heavens, landing on its back and causing blood to fly. Sensing the fatal danger, the creature hastily folded its wings, blocking Chang Hao's sudden attack. But now its wings were broken by Chang Hao's attack. At the same time, it let out a howl and began to run. But having lost its wings, its speed fell dramatically. A black martial weapon ruthlessly struck its head, causing its body to go limp and fall from the sky. "Nice work." Long Chen grabbed the unconscious creature, flying back toward Bao Buping and Chang Hao. He pressed a finger to the creature's head and sent in his powerful spiritual strength. Soul Search. Long Chen's spiritual strength invaded the creature's head, rushing into its mind sea. But suddenly, its head exploded automatically as Long Chen seemed to have touched some kind of restriction. Long Chen snorted and his spiritual strength enveloped the sky. The creature's scattering soul was still caught by his spiritual strength. Even these fragments could be useful to him. "Fuck, we were noticed so quickly." Long Chen cursed, his expression changing. He sensed danger rapidly approaching. He grabbed the creature's headless corpse and flung it into the distance, while he fled in the opposite direction. The three of them had only just disappeared when over 10 similar creatures rushed over, flying toward the headless corpse. These experts had terrifying auras. Seeing the headless corpse, their icy eyes were filled with killing intent. One of them waved a hand, and they all split up, searching for the killer. Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao were hiding under a boulder. Long Chen had dug out a small hole for the three of them to hide in. As for the outside, he had covered their aura with medicinal powders and erased any tracks. Lying within this hole, none of them dared to move. They lay there for 3 whole days. Killing that creature had caused a huge disturbance. After 3 days of hearing them searching, things returned to calm. However, Long Chen knew that probably quite a few more adventurers had entered Devil Spirit Mountain during this time. Perhaps the creatures thought that the murderer was one of those adventurers and had already been slain. "Now what?" whispered Bao Booping. "Let's wait another 2 days for the disturbance to completely die out. Now that we're here, we're not in a rush," said Long Chen. Although the creature's head had exploded in the end, Long Chen had used the fragments of its soul to piece together some information. This information was extremely helpful to him. That risk had definitely been worth it. After 2 days, they stealthily crawled out of the ground and continued onward. According to that creature's memories, this location had over 10 hidden sentries in charge of defending it. If a person touched the formation, one of them would go kill them. Due to its soul exploding, Long Chen wasn't able to get its complete memories, so he didn't know the location of those hidden sentries. But he could use his sense of danger to avoid them. As they advanced, they saw more and more marks of battle, as well as broken fragments of weapons. They even saw a few broken skeletons. Those skeletons were even harder than king items. There were some bloodstains on the ground that still possessed auras that made their hair stand on end despite how much time had passed. A terrifying battle definitely occurred here before. "Perhaps this is the battlefield from the Dark Era," said Bao Booping nervously. The aura that came from the ground here made them feel a chill. There were definitely countless corpses buried here, corpses of heroes slain in battle. "Careful!" Long Chen suddenly pulled the two of them to the ground. A flash of light appeared overhead. A huge light beam swept through the air, shocking Bao Booping and Chang Hao. If Long Chen hadn't pulled them down, they would have probably been hit. But curiously, this light beam didn't give off any sense of danger. That was what made it so they hadn't sensed it at all. "What is that?" Bao Booping stared closely at the huge light beam. Within this light beam was the image of a huge sword. It appeared heavy enough to shake the sky. With its countless runes revolving around it, it had to be a world-shaking divine item. Long Chen looked closely at the projection of the sword and then in which direction it was coming from. As expected, this world's creatures are up to no good. They're intentionally projecting the images of divine items toward the sovereign blood seal. That way, the outside world will see the reflections of a few divine items on the Devil Spirit Mountain, and more people will be baited over. Bao Booping and Chang Hao nodded. This light beam was pointed precisely in the direction they had come from. "But what's the point in drawing over more people?" asked Bao Booping. "The answer to that question isn't something we can rush. Just now, when I did a soul search of that creature we killed, I didn't find any answers in those regards. But this light gives us a direction. The projection has to have the true treasure behind it, so—" "Hee, you understand," laughed Long Chen. "Long Chen, are you saying we can obtain that treasure?" Bao Booping and Chang Hao's eyes began to shine. "But of course. Otherwise, what would be the point of taking such a huge risk in coming here? But right now, our main goal is still the heaven-splitting divine tablet. Let's go take a look at it." The three of them carefully crept in the direction of the light. But while the light looked like it had come from very close by, even after 2 days and tens of thousands of miles of travel, they didn't see the light source. On the third day, the light had faded, but they had already determined its direction, so there was no problem. The three of them stealthily passed by many sentries. Once, they almost ran into one of them, causing the three of them to immediately find a hole to hide in. They wouldn't have a problem dealing with a group of just 10 of these creatures, but if they were exposed, then even more terrifying life forms would come to surround them, and they would be doomed. On the way, Bao Booping and Chang Hao's admiration toward Long Chen continued to rise. They realized the only reason the old man had agreed to let them go to Devil Spirit Mountain was because of Long Chen. Without Long Chen, then with their characters, they'd probably have just charged their way in and quickly be surrounded and killed. Long Chen brought them along a winding path, avoiding countless dangers. Although they were still surrounded by danger, it could be said that the old man's theory that power was greater than intelligence was not always true. When just intelligence wasn't able to solve a problem, you would need to rely on power. But when your power wasn't enough, intelligence could save your life. Without Long Chen's intelligence, they'd have definitely long since died. This clash of principles was quite conflicting. From the time they saw that light beam, They traveled for a whole week before seeing a distant mountain. The mountain was huge and pitch black. Its circumference was in the tens of thousands of miles, but it wasn't steep. It was like a huge pile of dirt. However, it was so huge that it was shocking. When they saw this mountain, Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao felt a suffocating feeling. It was like the mountain was trying to crush them flat. When they reached the foot of the mountain, they felt like they were about to cough up blood from looking at the mountain. This mountain is way too sinister. How is it giving off such an evil feeling? Bao Buping gulped and cursed. Just at this moment, the mountain quivered and a majestic aura suddenly soared. Chang Hao and Bao Buping suddenly took out 2 hollow rocks and hid the 3 of them inside. The rocks were specifically made by Long Chen. When they ran into certain situations, the rocks could save their lives. Their edges had been ground down to be seamless. No one would suspect the rocks were anything but ordinary. In an extremely unremarkable part of the rocks were 3 small holes. The 3 of them could see outside through them. Long Chen saw a set of golden armor slowly rising on the mountain. A ray of light illuminated it, and a huge projection shot into the distance. That direction was Devil Spirit Mountain's entrance. That's a terrifying ancestral item. Bao Buping stared at the armor enviously. But as the armor slowly rose, Long Chen saw a single thin chain binding it. As expected, it was bait and were the fish. Chang Hao cursed when he saw the chain. Clearly, this ancestral item armor was bait this world's creatures had put out in order to draw more people over and then kill them. Although they weren't able to see the chain clearly, for it to be able to contain an ancestral item showed how terrifying it was. Ancestral items had their own spirits. If the chain wasn't strong enough, it would have fled on its own. Let's get closer. The 3 of them came out of the rocks. Based on their previous experience, this light beam would continue for 2 days. Going now under the shadow of the light would be safer. Now that they had reached this point, this region was no longer defended by hidden sentries. However, they were still careful. When they reached the top of the mountain and saw the situation, they all sucked in a cold gasp of air. At the top of the mountain were countless holes. Some were large and some were small. They were placed randomly. There would at least be 1 hole every 100 miles. As for the golden armor, it was floating above one of the holes, and the chain binding it was coming out of the hole. Long Chen, do you want to try seeing if we can sever the chain and take away the golden armor? Bao Buping was tempted. No rush. There are countless treasures here. Perhaps the heaven-splitting divine tablet is in one of these holes. But we can't check them all one by one. If we tried, we'd probably draw the attention of this world's creatures. Right now, we should investigate the situation around here. But remember, we have to stay calm at all times, warned Long Chen. The 2 of them hastily nodded. As they got closer to the secrets of Devil Spirit Mountain, they were starting to lose control of their emotions. On the other hand, Long Chen was still as calm as ever, his emotions not even rippling because of the treasures here. Just this one point made Bao Buping and Chang Hao ashamed. Compared to Long Chen, they were clearly too immature. Long Chen looked around and said, "Let's go look at the center." This mountain was too huge. Even though they had reached the top, they still weren't able to see what was going on in the center. The 3 of them carefully approached. But just a couple 100 miles in, they were struck dumb by what they saw. None of them had imagined that at the center was actually a huge square pit. It was hundreds of miles wide, and so deep that all they saw was darkness. But they were vaguely able to see some things on the walls. They couldn't see clearly with their eyes, but they also didn't dare to use their divine sense. "Let's go down." Looking at the darkness below, he beckoned to the 2 of them. They began to climb down the wall like geckos. "Be careful. Don't touch these black lines." "Those are formation lines," whispered Long Chen suddenly as they climbed. Huge black lines had started appearing on the walls. They were not all conspicuous and looked just like natural rock veins. But Long Chen's senses warned him they were traps. Bao Buping and Chang Hao heard his warning and became even more careful, focusing all their senses on avoiding the black lines. The 3 of them descended straight down. After several miles, a notch appeared in the wall. This notch was 4 feet deep and 2 meters tall. Seeing it, Long Chen, Bao Buping and Chang Hao almost let out a startled cry. That was because a person was standing within the notch. "Don't move. He's already dead." Long Chen hastily stopped Chang Hao and Bao Buping from attacking. If they did, it would cause huge fluctuations. Bao Buping and Chang Hao stopped their hands that were already starting to attack. Only now did they realize that this person was standing still. However, he possessed a powerful aura. He was clearly a soul transformation expert. Carefully examining him, they saw he was very young, looking to be in his 20s. Within his aura were the fluctuations of heavenly Tao energy. "He's a rank 7 celestial," said Bao Buping with surprise. A rank 7 celestial who had reached the soul transformation realm. He was definitely a powerful existence, and such a young soul transformation expert was truly rare. Furthermore, this person was exceptionally calm, looking like he was in his meditative state. He wasn't moving at all, and his body was constantly absorbing energy from heaven and earth like he was cultivating. If Long Chen hadn't said that he was dead, they really would have thought that he was a living person. His soul has already vanished. All that's left is a husk. Long Chen's spiritual strength was powerful, and he instantly saw through this person's condition. In truth, he was also very shocked. If a person's soul had vanished, then it meant that they were dead. But his corpse was still cultivating. That went completely against the cultivation world's laws. He carefully pushed the corpse lightly, and it moved aside. Seeing what was behind him, the three of them were once more shocked. There was a black chain stabbing the corpse through its spine. The chain was extremely strange, but the most shocking thing was that this chain seemed to be alive, as if it was pulsating flesh. It contained its own living aura. It was like the chain was growing out of the corpse's back. It connected to the stone wall behind him, and they could clearly sense the corpse's energy slowly being extracted. Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao's scalps turned numb. This sight was simply appalling. They continued downward and quickly saw another notch with another corpse. This corpse was of a female, and its aura was even stronger. She had fire-red hair and was very beautiful. There was a scale growing on her forehead. "It's an ancient race expert," whispered Bao Buping. She possessed the specific aura of the ancient races, and it was easy to recognize her just from her appearance. She was also a rank 7 celestial and had reached the soul transformation realm. If she had been alive, her power would have been terrifying. "Are these corpses from the Dark Era?" asked Chang Hao. Long Chen shook his head. "Her robes don't look like they come from that era. And based on the texture of her hair, this corpse's age must be under 10,000 years. As an alchemist, he had to be knowledgeable about the corrosion of time. It was a fundamental skill for alchemists when distinguishing the ages of medicinal ingredients. How is that possible? If she only entered once the sovereign seal weakened, how could her cultivation base be above the Jade Core realm?" said Bao Buping. It was only after Devil Spirit Mountain's sovereign blood seal had weakened that the Martial Heaven Continent's experts had been able to probe Devil Spirit Mountain. Basically, everyone who went in never came out. It was unknown how many heavenly geniuses had been devoured. Long Chen looked at the two of them. The only possibility is that she broke through to the soul transformation realm after becoming a corpse. Their expressions changed. Such a thing was too bizarre. Sensing the woman's aura, it was like she was meditating. Then looking at the chain behind her, they were unable to refute this theory. Long Chen's expression was also grave. Devil Spirit Mountain was even stranger and more dangerous than he had expected. Once more warning the two of them to absolutely not touch the black marks, they continued downward. As they continued descending, they saw more and more notches in the walls with corpses. The atmosphere was so tense that it was hard for them to breathe. These corpses were all young and powerful celestials. Seeing them stabbed through the back by chains in the wall was a ghastly sight. The notches were lined up in even rows. There would be one every 300 meters. The majority of the notches had corpses in them, but some were empty with only a chain inside. Seeing this, Long Chen's heart sank. This square-shaped giant pit was like a deep well. If these notches continued in this pattern, then just how many notches did there have to be within this pit? Just how many corpses? As they went deeper, they noticed that the corpses actually grew stronger. There were rank 8 celestials amongst them. Seeing rank 8 celestials had been turned into corpses, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's hearts pounded. These were existences on the same level as them. Bastards, this is a senior of our heaven-splitting battle sect. As they continued downward, Bao Buping and Chang Hao suddenly saw the robes of the heaven-splitting battle sect. Their killing intent immediately soared. But before they could reach out to sever the chain, Long Chen held them back. Now isn't the time to save them. Unacceptable. I won't allow these bastards to blaspheme the corpse of my heaven-splitting battle sect's senior. Raged Bao Buping. Long Chen furiously replied, "Do you still remember why we came here? If you sacrificed all our lives to save a corpse, just how stupid would you be? Since they've come to Devil Spirit Mountain, all of these people knew what they were getting themselves into. Our goal is the heaven-splitting divine tablet and Devil Spirit Mountain secrets. If you cause our deaths here, will you be able to face the heaven-splitting battle sect's ancestors in death?" Buping, the old man, already told us to listen to Long Chen. And he's right. Chang Hao was equally infuriated, but he still retained some of his rationality. Bao Buping gradually calmed down as he stared at Long Chen's iron-stiff expression. Looking at the corpse, killing intent raged in his eyes, but he didn't say any more. Just at this moment, the sound of the wind changed. They immediately recognized it to be something flying through the air. What now? Bao Buping and Chang Hao were both caught off guard. This sound was clearly not just one person. There had to be several of this world's creatures flying over. In this kind of place, let alone fighting, just the slightest carelessness could end up causing them to touch the forbidden restrictions here, while these creatures could probably come and go as they please. Long Chen couldn't care that much any longer, and he spread his divine sense to find the empty spots. "Get over here. There are 3 empty spots. We'll disguise ourselves as corpses." They stood in the notches, taking the same posture as the other corpses. They even made the fluctuations of their aura as steady as them. They had only just set themselves up when over 10 of those winged creatures flew over. They held a person in their hands. He was a cultivator. Long Chen stealthily used his divine sense to see that it was a rank 8 celestial who was also at the Foundation Forging Realm. He clearly had to be a disciple from a powerful sect. However, his robes were foreign to him, so he wasn't able to tell what sect he came from. But such a powerful genius couldn't possibly be a wild cultivator. Long Chen closed his eyes and didn't move. Bao Buping and Chang Hao did the same. They solemnly acted dead. Long Chen suddenly realized that they were coming for him. That was because there was an empty spot beside him for the cultivator. As soon as this thought formed in his head, those creatures arrived beside him. He could smell the scent of blood coming from them. It was like they were the offspring of evil and violence born in blood. One of them tossed the cultivator into the notch beside Long Chen. The cultivator let out a pained grunt. He was actually not yet dead. These creatures icily stared at him like he was a pig for the slaughter. One of them grabbed the chain coming out of the wall. Its tip flickered with a cold, sharp light. The chain stabbed through the cultivator's back, causing him to let out a miserable scream that resounded throughout the pit. "Jie," the creatures laughed bizarrely. That laughter was as painful to listen to as scraping iron. But from that laugh, it was possible to tell that they delighted in his suffering. Long Chen involuntarily clenched his fists. Although he wasn't a friend of this cultivator, seeing these creatures torment a fellow human like this still infuriated him. The cultivator's screams lasted for a few breaths before his body turned stiff. His screams came to a halt, and his twisted and pained expression became calm. Using the 9-star He Gem and body art senses, Long Chen sensed the chain absorbing the cultivator's soul. Once his soul was stripped from him, he entered an extremely strange state. It was like he had become a living corpse. A strange energy also came out of the chain, causing the cultivator to suddenly become covered in runes. Then he entered a bizarre cultivation state just like the other corpses. After a few minutes of watching, seeing that the cultivator was completely motionless, the creatures flew away. But although they had left, Long Chen didn't move. He still felt a sense of danger that hadn't passed. Seeing Long Chen hadn't moved, Bao Buping and Chang Hao also didn't move. It took a full 2 hours before a figure appeared in the sky. It was another one of this world's creatures. This creature once more checked the cultivator that had just been caught before leaving. Only once it left did the feeling of danger pass. Long Chun sighed with relief. Confirming there was no more danger, he slowly began to move. Fuck, what a crafty thing. We almost got duped. Bao Buping wiped off some sweat. Just now, he had almost spoken. Fortunately, he had been smart enough to glance at Long Chen and see him standing there motionless. Otherwise, they would have been screwed. Perhaps after being with Long Chen for so long, he had also learned to use his head a bit. That creature wasn't targeting us. It was targeting this cultivator. His soul was sucked away by the chain, and the creature wanted to see if he had split his soul and created a spiritual clone, said Long Chen. Many cultivators made spiritual clones to protect against the worst-case scenario. At a critical time, they could sacrifice the clone to protect the main body. This creature had been lying in wait to prevent this. Now that 2 hours had passed, that person's spiritual fluctuations had completely vanished, allowing it to leave. Let's go. I want to see what secrets Devil Spirit Mountain is hiding. Long Chen waved his hand, and the three of them once more began to carefully descend. After 2 hours, they finally saw the end of the pit and a huge altar. Seeing that altar, they were filled with shock. At the bottom of this huge, square pit was an altar suspended in the air by 4 huge chains. These chains were all 10 meters thick and flowing with energy. They were like 4 black dragons connected to the altar. There was a huge amount of energy slowly flowing from the chains into the altar. Divine runes floated around the altar, and its terrifying aura made Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao's hair stand on end. What damn thing is this? Bao Buping and Chang Hao became covered in cold sweat. It's probably connected to the corpses in the notches. Let's go take a look, said Long Chen. Don't you think we'll startle this world's creatures? Asked Chang Hao gravely. They couldn't help but feel terrified in front of this altar. That was a feeling that came from the core of their souls. Since we've come, we have to take a look. Long Chen suppressed his aura as much as possible and carefully stepped onto one of the chains. The chain didn't react to him at all. Long Chen felt like he had stepped onto a powerful current. He could sense boundless energy pouring into the altar. This current of energy is extremely complicated. Looks like the corpses on the walls really only exist for this altar, muttered Long Chen. Bao Buping and Chang Hao exchanged a glance. Clenching their teeth, they also stepped onto the chain. The chain was so huge that the three of them were like 4 ants crawling along it. It took them 6 hours to walk across. As they got closer, the pressure grew more terrifying. When they reached the divine runes, they were blocked from getting any closer. The divine runes blocked their sight as well. Now what? Bao Buping and Chang Hao were dumbfounded. It had taken so long to reach this point, but it had been for nothing? Long Chen looked at the divine runes and sank into thought. He slowly moved the black pot closer to them. Long Chen was also extremely nervous. These divine runes were clearly some kind of formation. If they touched them directly, probably the three of them would be instantly killed by the formation even before this world's life forms sensed them. The only thing that could possibly work was the black pot. This mysterious treasure had to have its own miraculous abilities. After all, it came from that mysterious expert from the 4 nations' ancient remnant. Seeing Long Chen get closer to the formation, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's hearts rose into their throats. Even if they were unafraid of death, to say they could be fearless in front of such a formation and in such an oppressive environment would be nonsense. Death wasn't to be feared. But a meaningless death would be too stupid. When the black pot got close to the formation quivered ever so slightly. Seeing this, Long Chen sighed. There was no way this would work. The formation was already starting to react even at this distance. Although the pot was strange and didn't unleash any aura, it was still unable to hide from the formation's senses. Just as Long Chen was preparing to give up, the pot shook slightly and a small burst of particles flew out of it. Those particles were like the rust that formed on the bottom of a pot. That rust flew out and merged into the formation's divine runes. A small opening a few feet wide opened up, delighting Long Chen. "The pot really is mighty." Long Chen praised the pot inside. It was truly worthy of being a treasure left behind by a transcendent power. It had boundless, marvelous uses. "Let's go." Long Chen beckoned to the two of them. They slowly walked through the opening the pot had formed for them. Once they were inside the formation, Long Chen put the pot away, and the formation returned to normal. Once they reached the altar, the first thing they saw was an 8-sided formation of divine runes covering a huge coffin. "Let's check the coffin." Long Chen directly jumped and flew over to it. Bao Buping and Chang Hao nervously followed, now realizing that when it came to guts, they weren't on the same level as Long Chen. Once he reached the coffin, Long Chen realized it was sealed and he couldn't tell what was happening inside. "It's sealed tight. Come and help me open it." Bao Buping and Chang Hao jumped in fright. "Long Chen, what if there's some terrifying existence inside?" "It's fine, just open it. Otherwise, we'll never know what secrets are within." Long Chen took out a king item spear and slowly inserted it between the coffin and its cover. The cover was too heavy. On his own, he was unable to move it. Bao Buping and Chang Hao looked at each other. Taking out the broadswords on their backs, they also jammed them in. They could only rely on their physical strength to move it. The coffin cover was even heavier than a mountain. The three of them had to use tremendous strength to slowly push it aside. When they finally pushed open a meter-wide crack, they looked down to see immortal mist surging from within the coffin. With just a whiff, they felt their spiritual yuan rapidly circulating, and their cultivation bases slowly grew. "It's several times more effective than our heaven-earth divine pool," exclaimed Bao Buping. Just this mist was able to allow their cultivation bases to rapidly advance. Bao Buping estimated that if he were to cultivate here for 10 days, he would have an 80% chance of breaking through to the Jade Core realm. "There's actually a divine spring below," exclaimed Chang Hao suddenly. Long Chen and Bao Buping looked closely through the mist. They were vaguely able to see the light of the liquid below. "This huge coffin is using the cultivator corpses outside to absorb heaven and earth's energy and condense a divine spring?" cried Bao Buping. "Then did we strike gold?" Chang Hao's eyes began to shine. A pool of this divine elixir was an absolute treasure. "No, we won't be able to get a single drop. The master is right there." Long Chen pointed. Bao Buping and Chang Hao jumped. Following Long Chen's finger, they saw a 10-meter board floating across the divine spring. There was a person lying on the ground. Below his head was a brick being used as a pillow. That person was covered in divine runes, and it was unclear if it was a female or male. Seeing it, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's hair stood on end as they felt a chill. They sensed an extremely terrifying feeling from this person. It was like it was a sleeping god. If it opened its eyes, their souls would explode. They gulped. They had never seen such a terrifying existence before. Even when the old man exploded in anger, they hadn't felt such a terrifying feeling. This existence was simply lying there, seemingly asleep. If it were to stand, would it be able to kill them with just a look? Is this a legendary divine fetus? Long Chen also found it hard to breathe. He suddenly understood why this world's creatures were wasting so much energy to bait the Martial Heaven Continent's experts into coming to Devil Spirit Mountain. The legends of inheritances, the projections of treasures, the fortunate adventurers who returned, they were all without exception part of the trap Devil Spirit Mountain had laid down. There were now countless corpses and chains within this pit, seemingly connected to this coffin and its terrifying master. Just what kind of plot was this? Thinking of this, Long Chen's scalp turned numb. Was this to say that this world's creatures were using the energy of geniuses to raise a powerful life form? What was their end goal? Seeing the huge amount of divine elixir lying within the coffin, there was no way to estimate how much or what energy this was. Boundless runes were giving off light within the divine elixir. There was clearly a special formation at work here as well. If that was all, perhaps Long Chen would be so brazen as to try seeing if he could dredge up a few pots of the divine elixir. But there was also some kind of energy within the divine elixir that linked it to the divine fetus. Once they touched the divine elixir, they would probably wake the divine fetus. Then the three of them wouldn't even have a corpse left. If we can't take the divine elixir, let's take the mist. Bao Buping and Chang Hao exchanged a glance. They each took out a bottle which was a storage tool. They carefully sucked in the mist. Long Chen didn't move. He carefully observed the divine fetus and its connection with the divine spring's elixir. He noticed that its body was directly connected to the divine elixir. That connection was like a fetus and its amniotic fluid. Touching the divine elixir would definitely disturb the divine fetus. It was like a sleeping baby now. But once roused, the consequences would be too horrible to imagine. Bao Buping and Chang Hao pulled out the immortal mist. Although the quantities of that were limited, no matter what, it was still a treasure. There had been plenty of immortal mist when the coffin had been opened, but it gradually grew sparse. The scene within the coffin also grew clearer to them. That pillow's something good. Long Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. The divine fetus was using a brick-like object as a stone pillow. He sensed great spiritual energy coming from it. If he hadn't used his spiritual strength to scan it, it would have looked like nothing more than an ordinary brick. But it was actually an extremely powerful treasure. Long Chen flew into the coffin. He slowly descended toward the edge of the divine fetus. Seeing this, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's eyes almost flew out of their heads. "Long Chen, are you crazy?" demanded Bao Buping quietly. He and Chang Hao felt like he had gone insane. If he disturbed the divine fetus, they'd all be doomed. "Come over here and help me out. I've taken a fancy to this pillow." The more he looked at the brick, the fonder he grew toward it. He began to excitedly rub his hands. Long Chen's words almost made Bao Buping and Chang Hao faint. He had actually set his sight upon the divine fetus's pillow? Wasn't that like plucking a hair from a tiger? If they disturbed it, they would all die. They were unable to imagine that the person the old man viewed highly, the calm and intelligent Long Chen, would do something as crazy as this. "Long Chen, do you really think that's possible?" Bao Buping gulped, unable to believe his ears. "Don't worry about it. As long as we don't form any hostility for the divine fetus, we'll be fine. The brick isn't connected to the formation, so as long as we're careful, we would succeed." Long Chen was extremely confident. He was sure that this brick was being used as nothing more than an ordinary pillow. "I'll hold the head and you switch out the brick." Long Chen reached out toward its head. The divine fetus was like a statue. When Long Chen raised its head, its entire body was raised into the air, leaving about an inch of space between it and the brick. Bao Buping and Chang Hao began to sweat. But since Long Chen wanted the brick, they hastily pushed it out. This brick seemed like an ordinary cyan stone pillow. But it was actually extremely heavy, and even the two of them had to work hard to push it out from beneath the divine fetus's head. "Take something out to replace it. It just has to be of the same height," whispered Long Chen. "What should we use?" asked Bao Buping. "Anything. As long as the height's the same. This thing's about the same weight as a normal human, so it'll be fine," said Long Chen. "How about a wine pot?" asked Chang Hao. "Sure." Long Chen nodded. Chang Hao quickly took out a pot-shaped object and placed it beneath the divine fetus's head. Its height perfectly matched the stone pillow. Long Chen carefully placed the divine fetus back down. Seeing that it didn't react at all, he sighed with relief. But then just a moment later, he sniffed a few times. A strange expression appeared on his face. "This is your wine pot? It's clearly a chamber pot. You use a chamber pot to drink wine." Fuck, I mixed them up. I'll switch it." "Just leave it. It's not worth the effort. Being able to sleep on a chamber pot is its fortune." Long Chen shook his head. Ignoring the divine fetus, he looked at the stone pillow. It was extremely heavy and truly just like a brick. Yes, it appeared to be just an ordinary cyan brick. But the 8 corners of it had extremely tiny divine runes. He had only decided to take it because he had seen those divine runes. Those 8 divine runes were things he didn't recognize, but he felt that they had the same air as the divine rune the mysterious expert in the 4 nations ancient remnant had left behind on the black pot. That was why he had deduced that it was an absolute treasure. Fortunately, the brick wasn't connected to the divine fetus. Taking it didn't disturb the divine fetus at all. There was no time to examine the brick any closer. He put it in the primal chaos space and prepared to leave. At this time, he saw Bao Buping staring at the divine elixir unwillingly. Don't look. You can't touch it, and seeing but not being able to touch it is just torture. Why bother? We have more important things to do. Bao Buping and Chang Hao nodded. Since Long Chen said that they couldn't touch it, then they definitely couldn't touch it. They followed Long Chen out of the coffin. Restoring the cover, they opened the altar formation again and returned to the wall along the chain. Climbing up the stone wall, they didn't encounter any of this world's creatures again. Other than when they escorted geniuses here, it seemed that they didn't come here at all. Perhaps they were too confident in their defenses and had never imagined that someone would be able to enter this deep. Once they had climbed back up to the peak of the mountain, they looked down at the endless darkness below, their hearts heavy. They had discovered a heaven-shaking plot. But right now, they were too weak. Even though they had discovered this plot, they were unable to do anything about it. Now what? Should we go back and report this? Wondered Chang Hao. During this trip, they had investigated many parts of Devil Spirit Mountain and would be able to make a map whenever they wanted. They would be able to bring the secret of the altar out as well. Even if they hadn't found the heaven-splitting divine tablet, this was still a miracle, and it left a path open for future disciples of the heaven-splitting battle sect who came here. They would find surviving easier, and there would be greater chances of finding the heaven-splitting divine tablet in the future. Maybe one of us should go back now, said Bao Buping. His meaning was that they shouldn't put all their eggs in one basket. If they split up, their probability of success would increase. One person could go back with the secrets they had learned, while the other two could continue searching. If those two died here, at least one person would have escaped. If all three of them died, all their efforts would have been useless. Long Chen shook his head. That won't work. Was this a joke? Whether Bao Buping or Chang Hao was sent, the chances of them managing to escape were too low. And if Long Chen went, then with the two of them searching for the heaven-splitting divine tablet, with their characters, they'd probably be noticed within the day. This suggestion was lacking any thought. Don't worry so much. Just listen to me. In any case, we're not in a rush, said Long Chen. What are we supposed to do now? Asked Bao Buping. Right now, we should start searching around this pit. If this really is a trap, then the bait should be here as well. Long Chen marked an unremarkable spot on the terrain as their starting point, and they began to search. It wasn't long before they saw a formation ahead. The formation's runes were causing space to twist around it. There was a recess at the center of it with a powerful martial weapon inside. Even through the formation, they could sense its shocking power. It was a halberd. But this halberd had a chain wrapped around it that tightly bound it to a red stone located at the very center of the formation. So the bait's here, but we can't touch it. Bao Buping stared at the halberd. That was definitely a powerful martial weapon. But since this world's creatures dared to put it here, that meant they weren't afraid of others taking it. Although the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples had simple minds, they weren't fools. Such an obvious trap was still something they could see. Although it looked like it was just floating there was no way they could touch it. Long Chen nodded. This world's creatures are truly ruthless. Let alone entering this formation, just getting close would cause you to be sensed. The flow of space around the formation is strange. We'd be instantly exposed if we got close. Although Long Chen wasn't a formation master, he had powerful spiritual strength, as well as the sharp senses of the 9-star hegemon body art. Such a trap was something he wouldn't possibly fall for. Of course, if the bait was strong enough, then there'd be no telling what he'd do with his see a treasure and can't walk away disease. The three of them continued to search. Within 4 hours, they passed by over 10 formations, as well as over 10 treasures that made them drool. There were martial weapons, strange weapons, sets of armor. Every single one of them was tempting. Seeing these treasures but not being able to touch them was painful. However, they had to endure. Their goal was the heaven-splitting divine tablet. That was the most important thing. After another few hours, they encountered a patrol of this world's creatures. The three of them relied on the hollow stones they had made to hide, and they easily passed by them. As they continued, they suddenly heard the ground rumbling, and they hastily hid within the hollow rocks once more. The ground split open and a huge skeleton appeared. It was several miles long, and its bones looked as if they had been made of gold. A terrifying pressure descended, making it difficult for them to breathe. It's the skeleton of a Xian beast. That's a priceless treasure. Bao Buping stared in shock. The Xian beasts were the ancestors of the ancient races. Their bloodlines were extremely pure, and they were all ancient beasts that possessed innate divine abilities. Their power was immense. This skeleton definitely belonged to the Xian beasts. There was a huge fang at its front that made it look like a tiger Xian beast skeleton. The golden skeleton had countless runes revolving along it. Long Chen involuntarily gulped. If he could obtain the golden skeleton, he'd have definitely struck cold. This skeleton had dozens of parts that could be used to create ancestral items. But thinking about it, he gave up. Even ignoring whether or not he could obtain it, even if he did, such a thing couldn't see the light of day. The Xian beasts would definitely flip the heavens if they saw it. As the skeleton appeared, a huge light beam shot out from the sky, shining on the skeleton and projecting its image to the front of Devil Spirit Mountain. Seeing that, Long Chen sank into thought and said, "We have to restart." What? It seems that powerful treasures won't appear on the surface. For example, this skeleton came from underground, and we wouldn't have noticed while it was like that. So the heaven-splitting divine tablet is probably in a similar state. If we just search blindly like this, we won't be able to find it even if we search for a lifetime. So we have to start over, said Long Chen. But if we can't notice it when it's underground, how would restarting help? Bao Buping and Chang Hao became a bit frantic. This was related to their ultimate goal. The heaven-splitting divine tablet is the absolute treasure of the heaven-splitting battle sect. As we search, you should silently circulate the battle god's sacred canon. As long as the heaven-splitting divine tablet is nearby, you'll definitely form a resonance with it, said Long Chen. Ah, that's right. If it's here, then as long as we use our full power, it'll definitely form a resonance and support us with its power. Bao Buping clapped his leg. Don't do that. We came here to steal it in secret, not snatch it by force, understand? Said Long Chen hastily. He was afraid that these two brothers of his might really do something like that. The two of them nodded. Starting back from the beginning, they began to search once more. Bao Buping and Chang Hao silently circulated the battle god's sacred canon as they did. With Long Chen at the front, they searched for 7 days, avoiding patrols several times. Finally, Bao Buping and Chang Hao cried out at the same time, "Found it!" Bao Buping and Chang Hao had delighted expressions. After 7 days, they had circled around most of the mountain but hadn't sensed anything the entire time. They had started growing uneasy. The heaven-splitting divine tablet was their ultimate target. Now hearing their delighted cries, a stone also fell from Long Chen's heart. They continued to a level area. This place was totally flat, and it looked completely ordinary. There was nothing remarkable about it. The heaven-splitting divine tablet is probably below. The feeling grew more intense once we got here, said Bao Buping excitedly. As the top disciples of the heaven-splitting battle sect, as cultivators of the battle god's sacred canon, they had an inseparable relation to the heaven-splitting divine tablet. If it hadn't been for the fact that they couldn't fully circulate the battle god's sacred canon for fear of being sensed, they'd have long since found the heaven-splitting divine tablet. Let's start digging. Chang Hao rubbed his hands. Are you crazy? Do you think this is the same as digging up potatoes? Everything down there is covered by a formation. If we touch it, we'll immediately be sensed, scolded Long Chen. Dig? Just how simple-minded did someone have to be to think of such a method? Long Chen also had to admire their intelligence. He was starting to question the old man's words now. Sometimes just relying on power wasn't enough, and sometimes just relying on intelligence also wasn't enough. His path couldn't be either. As for Chang Hao and Bao Buping, they could not use their heads because they lived under the old man's shelter. With the old man to block the wind and rain, all they had to do was properly cultivate. But Long Chen wasn't the same. He didn't like relying on others. He hoped to rely on himself to resolve things. Without any brains, he'd have long since died. So the old man's words were very correct but didn't completely suit him. He would need to have both brawn and brains to live. But then what else are we supposed to do? We can sense it but we can't see it. Bao Buping and Chang Hao looked at the ground with obvious desire. With their hasty natures, they couldn't calm themselves. Just wait. Wait for it to come out. Let's go investigate some other things. Long Chen shook his head. He also didn't have any solution at this time. The three of them found a secluded corner and hid themselves within their hollow stones. This wait lasted 6 days. During these 6 days, 3 patrols came by them, but not one of the creatures even looked at their unremarkable rocks. These 6 days felt as long as 6 years to Bao Buping and Chang Hao. Each minute had been torture. On the other hand, Long Chen was still calm. As he waited for the heaven-splitting divine tablet to appear, he pondered everything he had seen in Devil Spirit Mountain. According to his experience, Devil Spirit Mountain was actually a scheme of unprecedented size. That divine fetus alone was absolutely terrifying and exceeded his current understanding. Just as Long Chen was tidying up his thoughts and pondering the implications of Devil Spirit Mountain, the ground shook and a huge stone tablet broke through the ground, appearing in the air. The heaven-splitting divine tablet. Long Chen was shocked. Originally, he had been prepared to wait for a few months or even a year with his bad luck. But for it to appear in just 6 days, he had clearly been helped out by the other two's presence. The stone tablet was black and covered in complicated images. It was over 600 meters tall with a clear crack on its bottom. It was the other half of the heaven-splitting divine tablet. It really appeared. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were almost sobbing. Finding this half of the heaven-splitting divine tablet had been the dream of countless generations of the heaven-splitting battle sect. The two of them had an urge to grab it right now. But that wasn't possible. Right now, the heaven-splitting divine tablet was tightly wrapped by many chains. It had over 10 times the number of chains binding it as any other divine item they had seen before. It was clear that this world's creatures also viewed it as a peerless treasure. Seeing those chains, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's killing intent soared. They wanted to go up and tear the chains off right now. Long Chen, what should we do? Bao Buping and Chang Hao turned toward Long Chen. Our chances of bringing back the heaven-splitting divine tablet aren't very high. Long Chen shook his head as he examined the chains. But I've already recorded everything on it with a photographic jade. Even if we can't bring it out, the 9 forms of split the heavens can just barely count as restored. As long as we escape alive, we didn't come for nothing. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were delighted. They hadn't expected Long Chen to be able to activate a photographic jade here. It had to be known that activating a photographic jade caused fluctuations that were easy to sense at their level. With the 9 forms of split the heavens, the bosses would be able to advance smoothly, and if they were able to cultivate all 9 forms of split the heavens, the heaven-earth divine pool could slowly be replenished. Then the heaven-splitting battle sect could continue. Thinking of that, they were incredibly excited. They were filled with unswerving esteem for Long Chen. Without him, there was no way they would have been able to do this. Most likely, they'd have ended up like those corpses in the pit, tools used by this world's creatures. Long Chen's gaze swept across the heaven-splitting divine tablet. Taking it away isn't very likely. But we should still try. However, there are 2 things we have to do before that. Bao Buping and Chang Hao's eyes brightened. Long Chen was different from them. He definitely had some assurance to say that they could try, or he wouldn't have said anything. What things? Asked Bao Buping. To take those 2 things you wanted. As brothers, I can't let you get nothing, right? Long Chen smiled. You're talking about? Bao Buping and Chang Hao were startled and delighted. Let's go. Long Chen waved his hand, and the 3 of them went off in a certain direction. This time, they were very quick, and in less than a couple hours, they arrived in front of another formation. In the center of the formation was a golden sword. It was an extremely powerful ancestral item. Long Chen took out the black pot. Slowly approaching it, the black pot didn't let him down. A speck of rust on the bottom of it turned to dust and sprinkled across the formation, forming a small hole for Long Chen. Bao Buping's heart clenched. When they had first seen this golden sword, he had said that even dying would be worth it if he could obtain the sword. Clearly, Long Chen had remembered what he had said and was helping him steal it. That made him incomparably grateful. Holding the pot, Long Chen arrived in front of the golden sword. Looking at the chain wrapping around it, he silently sensed it. The chain was only lightly wrapped around the sword's hilt. As long as the chain was slightly undone, he would be able to bring out the sword. Another trap. Only an idiot would fall for it. Long Chen sneered at the chain. No matter what he used to touch the chain, he would be sensed. Even the pot was no exception. The formation outside was just the first defense. This chain was the second defense. By making the chain look so easy to remove, they set up this immoral trap. The chains had strange fluctuations. If he wanted to touch this chain, he would need something that was made of the same material as it or that had the same fluctuations. Coincidentally, it just so happened he did have such a thing. A cyan brick appeared in his hand. He gently touched it to the chain and found that there was no reaction, nor was there any sense of danger. Only then did he feel at ease and used the brick to smash the chain a few times. The chains were undone. In that instant, the golden sword's light blossomed and it actually tried to escape into the sky. Just as it began to fly away, Long Chen, who had been prepared from the start, smashed it with the pot, forcing it back down. "Fuck after I save you, you don't know how to repay kindness?" raged Long Chen. He smashed the golden sword several times with the pot. Its runes began to dim, and the item spirit let out terrified fluctuations and sent a message begging for mercy. It had been terrified by the pot. The huge coffin might have been something Long Chen wouldn't dare to smash, but an ancestral item was something he was confident in handling with the brick. After all, he had experience in that regard. Seeing the golden sword begging for mercy, Long Chen left the formation with the pot and the sword. When he came out, the formation returned to its previous state as if nothing had happened. But the golden sword within it had vanished. The only thing remaining was the chain floating in the air. Long Chen handed the golden sword to Bao Buping. When Bao Buping received it, the ground beneath him shook as the golden sword was incredibly heavy. It was 10 times heavier than the broadsword he was currently using. That was an ancestral item. Within the heaven-splitting battle sect, there was not a single ancestral item. Even the bosses didn't have one. But he, Bao Buping, was the first to obtain one. "Don't get so excited. Hurry up and place a drop of blood to become its master," urged Long Chen. Bao Buping hastily dripped a drop of his essence blood. It formed a contract seal. This was the way to form a contract with an ancestral item. However, a barrier appeared around the golden sword, refusing Bao Buping's contract. It clearly wasn't willing to accept Bao Buping as its master. "Oh!" Long Chen raised the pot threateningly. The golden sword shook slightly and the barrier vanished. It instantly absorbed Bao Buping's essence blood. "Ha-dash!" Bao Buping laughed for a second before he clasped his own mouth. In his excitement, he had forgotten this was a land of death. Once Bao Buping got his weapon, Long Chen also did the same thing to take out a broadsword for Chang Hao. It was also an ancestral item. The two of them almost passed out from happiness. "Long Chen, let's go get a few more." Seeing Long Chen obtain 2 ancestral items so easily, their eyes were shining with the light of someone who had just gotten rich. Long Chen shook his head. "There's not enough time. Right now, we have to return to the heaven-splitting divine tablet. We have to take it away before it sinks back down to the ground." After saying that, he brought them back to the heaven-splitting divine tablet. The huge heaven-splitting divine tablet was suspended in the air. Its body was bound tightly by crisscrossing chains. Even Bao Buping and Chang Hao couldn't help but get goosebumps upon seeing how tightly it was bound. The 2 ancestral items they had obtained had only been bound by 1 chain. But the heaven-splitting divine tablet had to be bound by thousands of chains. Furthermore, these chains were tightly knotted to make sure there was no way to undo them. And even if they could be undone, there wasn't enough time. During this time, Long Chen had managed to figure out some of the rules of this place. Ordinary ancestral items would normally hover in the air for a day. Only some of the extremely powerful existences would stay in the air for 3 days at a time. But with how many chains were wrapped around the heaven-splitting divine tablet and with the thousands of knots they formed, even if no one noticed them, not even 30 days would be enough to free it. How are we supposed to release the heaven-splitting divine tablet? Asked Bao Buping. Directly cut it loose. All we need to do is sever these chains. Long Chen slowly took out Blood Drinker. Bao Buping and Chang Hao couldn't believe their ears. In their eyes, Long Chen was incredibly smart. Was such a reckless method really his style? Seeing their disbelieving expressions, Long Chen smiled. The old man has already said that when intelligence can't solve things, you'll need to use power. These chains have tightly bound the heaven-splitting divine tablet, and not even a god would be able to use intelligence to undo them. There's only one option remaining to us. These chains aren't exactly metallic, and they're extremely flexible and tenacious. We'll need both power and sharpness to sever them. I'll handle the sharp aspect, and you two handle the power aspect. With the combination of power and sharpness, we should have a 10% chance of severing these chains. Bao Buping and Chang Hao looked at the thousands of chains on the heaven-splitting divine tablet and had no confidence. Do we really only have a 10% chance? 10%'s already not bad. Sometimes luck is also a kind of power, so let's see how lucky you are. Long Chen intentionally didn't bring up his luck, because when it came to luck, he would have to rely on them. But what are we supposed to do even if it works? This will definitely alarm those creatures. Long Chen, you should go. You have a brain, and you can definitely escape. The two of us will try to free the heaven-splitting divine tablet. If we fall, you'll still be able to escape with the secrets we learned, so it would still be a success, said Chang Hao. Whether they succeeded or not in severing these chains, their chances of actually bringing the heaven-splitting divine tablet out of Devil Spirit Mountain were far too low. But none of them was willing to give up without trying. The heaven-splitting divine tablet was the heaven-splitting battle sect's inheritance divine item, and its usage was not limited to just recording the 9 forms of Split the Heavens. Only the complete heaven-splitting divine tablet could bring the heaven-splitting battle sect back to its old peak. This related to the secrets of the heaven-splitting battle sect. This was why, despite recording what was on it, they still wanted to bring it away. Right now, they had learned quite a few secrets of Devil Spirit Mountain. Being able to bring out those secrets was a huge victory. They were like a gambler who had already won many chips and was now debating whether to continue with a final gamble. If they lost, they would be left with nothing. That was why Chang Hao wanted Long Chen to leave first. Even if he and Bao Buping died, their mission would still be a success. But if the 3 of them died, they would all become unwilling ghosts. Don't worry about it, I've already thought of how to get out. None of us will die. Do you think an insignificant Devil Spirit Mountain can make things hard on me? Long Chen smiled. In truth, he was extremely emotional now. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were both iron-boned men, true heroes willing to die for their cause. That kind of bearing and aspiration was admirable. Prepare yourselves. We have to succeed in one try. Long Chen placed the 3 of them around the heaven-splitting divine tablet. He had already started accumulating energy, while Bao Buping and Chang Hao solemnly took out their newly obtained ancestral items. Although they were unable to bring out an ancestral item's full power, using them would increase the power of their attacks. Don't waste your energy. You won't succeed. Just at this moment, a voice rang out in their heads, causing them to jump. Senior, are you the divine tablet? Bao Buping's voice quivered. Yes. Children, you're very brave and very loyal, and most importantly, you possess brains and brawn. I'm very gratified, said that voice. Bao Buping and Chang Hao's eyes reddened from emotion. Bao Buping's voice was choked with sobs as he said, Senior, without you, our heaven-splitting battle sect has already declined to the edge of death. Our inheritance is about to be severed. Please tell us how we can bring you out. Even if it ends up with my body turned to dust, I am willing. The heaven-splitting divine tablet was too important to the heaven-splitting battle sect. It was their only hope. I have been bound by the Netherblood people's soul addicted to life formation. My essence has been sucked out, and I don't have the power to escape here. Furthermore, one of these chains is a life-devouring chain. It's a chain of life and impossible to sever with power. So if you do try, you'll just expose yourselves for nothing and lose your lives here. It's meaningless, said the heaven-splitting divine tablet. Then what should we do? Asked Bao Buping unwillingly. There's nothing you can do. With your current power, there's no way for you to help me. Your current split the heavens has already deviated from the original. I will transmit the core of split the heavens to you now. You won't be able to comprehend it with your current power, so give it to your seniors when you get back, said the heaven-splitting divine tablet. Suddenly, the heaven-splitting divine tablet's runes lit up slightly, and a golden light shot into Bao Buping's head. Bao Buping's whole body shook as new knowledge appeared in his mind. These were a set of sealed memories the heaven-splitting divine tablet had given him. He didn't dare to probe it right now. Such a thing had to be left to the old man. Quickly leave before you're noticed, said the heaven-splitting divine tablet. Senior, perhaps I have a way to help you escape the life-devouring chain. Long Chen sank into thought for a moment and took out a cyan brick. That was the divine fetus's stone pillow. The heaven-flipping seal. Seeing this cyan brick, the heaven-splitting divine tablet let out a startled cry. Senior, you recognize it? Long Chen was surprised. Child, how did you obtain it? The heaven-splitting divine tablet answered with a question. Long Chen directly told it about the corpses on the walls and the divine fetus. After a while, the heaven-splitting divine tablet sighed. This is a huge trap. Perhaps from the start, it's been one huge heaven-shaking plot. Long Chen, Bao Buping and Chang Hao exchanged a glance. Clearly the heaven-splitting divine tablet knew some things, but since it didn't say, they didn't dare to ask. The heaven-flipping seal is the core weapon of the heaven-flipping venerate. During the war in Devil Spirit Mountain, he killed countless invaders. Regretfully, the heaven-flipping venerate fell in battle, and the heaven-flipping seal's item spirit has been erased. Now, all that remains is its body. It has no soul, so it's also crippled. Unless what? Asked Long Chen. When he had first seen the brick, he had felt it to be extraordinary. Now he learned it was actually a treasure possessing an astonishing history. Hearing that it was crippled, he was dismayed. But from the heaven-splitting divine tablet's words, it seemed there was still hope. The heaven-flipping seal's power is extremely great. But with its item spirit dead, it only has a powerful body but does not have the soul of a martial weapon. The heaven-flipping seal is a powerful soul item, as the heaven-flipping venerate was a soul master. When the two of them worked together, they were practically unmatched. The heaven-splitting divine tablet seemed to be lost in its memories. In order to let the heaven-flipping seal return to its former glory, you'll need to forge a new item spirit for it. Otherwise, it'll always be a dead object, unable to bring out even 1,000th of its former glory. How can I forge an item spirit for it? Asked Long Chen hastily. I remember the alchemy world seemed to have a secret art known as the 10,000 spirit birth art. It's used to impart spirituality into pills. I heard this secret art can also be used in forging items. If you can command that kind of ability, maybe you can allow the heaven-flipping seal to be reborn. The 10,000 spirit birth art? Could it be the 9 heavens 10,000 life spirit technique? Long Chen searched through the pill sovereign memories but didn't find this 10,000 spirit birth art. However, he did find a similar one. Going through the technique carefully, he found that it truly was similar. It was able to impart spirituality to a medicinal pill or martial weapon. Realizing this, Long Chen was delighted. He wanted to start testing it right now to see if he could create an item spirit for the brick. Although the heaven-flipping seal is crippled, it truly can help me out greatly in my current state. The heaven-splitting divine tablet's runes shook slightly, and the brick in Long Chen's hands flew up to the chains binding it. The brick smashed into one of the chains, the only one that was translucent. A few tiny cracks appeared on the chain. Senior, will we be able to bring you out like this? Without even thinking about it, this was clearly the life-devouring chain it had told them about. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were delighted. The life-devouring chain is connected to all of Devil Spirit Mountain's restrictions. Right now, I only caused a small fault to appear in it. Through that, I can slowly escape the formation's restrictions and recover my energy. But I can't leave now, or I'll be immediately sensed. Children, I don't have much more time. But don't worry, with the life-devouring chain cracked, I'll be able to regain my freedom eventually. I'll leave on my own later. You should take care. Just at this moment, the heaven-splitting divine tablet began to slowly sink back into the ground. The formation closed the earth around it, and a cyan brick flew back into Long Chen's hands. Let's go. We really profited this time. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were ecstatic over what the heaven-splitting divine tablet had said. The heaven-splitting divine tablet would return to the heaven-splitting battle sect on its own. All they needed to do was leave Devil Spirit Mountain alive. You want me to go back empty-handed like this? That's not good. Long Chen looked around Devil Spirit Mountain with an unwilling expression. Long Chen, this is already enough. We should get going now, gulped Chang Hao. Right now, Long Chen had obtained the heaven-flipping seal, while the two of them had obtained 2 ancestral items and the complete 9 forms of Split the Heavens. They had even helped the heaven-splitting divine tablet break part of its seal, making it so its return to the sect was nothing more than a matter of time. They had solved everything they had come to solve. They had even learned some heaven-shaking secrets, so the best decision was to hurry up and scram. As long as they left alive, this would be a complete success. But seeing Long Chen's wolf-like gaze, the two of them got goosebumps. Since we've come, we can't leave empty-handed. Long Chen shrugged. We aren't empty-handed. Are you planning on emptying all of Devil Spirit Mountain? Bao Buping and Chang Hao were speechless. They finally realized that the greediest one amongst them was Long Chen. Even after obtaining so much, he wasn't satisfied. I have many brothers in the Xiantian Dao sect who need to be equipped. I want to see if I can get a few more treasures. It's fine, the black pot is right here. Let's go, once we miss this chance, there won't be another. Long Chen started rushing off. Bao Buping and Chang Hao helplessly followed with bitter expressions. They had always considered themselves to have big guts, but they felt when compared to Long Chen, their guts weren't that big. Bang! A feather dress unleashing rainbow light escaped from its chain. It was an extremely powerful ancestral item made from the feathers of hundreds of different kinds of powerful magical beasts. Those weren't ordinary feathers. They were the core feathers of those magical beasts, similar to the true feather of the red-eye sacred blood phoenix that Meng Qi had possessed back then. That true feather had been used to release all its divine abilities. As for this rainbow feather dress, the masters of all its feathers had been exceedingly terrifying existences. Each feather unleashed its own powerful pressure. This was the 9th treasure now. But amongst the 9 treasures, it was the strongest, delighting Long Chen. This rainbow feather dress was most suited to Meng Qi. After obtaining 9 ancestral items, Long Chen felt like flowers were about to bloom in his heart. This feather dress actually possessed a great spirituality, and after he saved it, it didn't try to flee immediately like the other ancestral items. Long Chen could even sense a kind of gratitude coming from it. He easily pulled the feather dress into the primal chaos space. The other ancestral items hadn't been so fortunate. They had all been smashed half-dead by the pot before being willing to submit. As he used the pot to subdue these ancestral items, he found that it continued to grow darker. There was a block of it in the middle that was now starting to shine with a glossy light as if it had just been used to stir-fry food. It was looking more and more like an iron pot used for cooking. As for the bottom of the pot, it was starting to accumulate that rust. This rust seemed to be both a secretion as well as a layer of armor. Long Chen was unable to see through its mysteries. But his intuition told him that this treasure left behind by that mysterious expert in the 4 Nations ancient remnant was currently undergoing some kind of transformation. However, no matter what he tried, the pot refused to connect to him. He was unable to communicate with it. Even now, he had no idea how he was supposed to use it. The only attack method he had with it was to smash. Oh, we've been noticed. Long Chen suddenly felt a vague sense of danger. Some of this world's creatures had to be rushing over with killing intent. He felt like he had done things flawlessly, but it seemed he had still been noticed. Most likely, he had stolen too many treasures and activated something similar to an alarm system. Well, that's about enough anyways. Let's go. Long Chen laughed. Taking out his saber, he fiercely hacked at a huge boulder. Very quickly, a sneering smiley face appeared on the rock. It was a very simple, very crude drawing, but it was definitely very expressive. Bao Buping and Chang Hao's hair stood on end. Long Chen was truly brazen to even have an urge to do such a thing at this time. Long Chen, if we don't get going, it'll be too late, urged Bao Buping. Running now is already too late. They're coming from 3 different directions. No matter which way we go, we'll be found. Long Chen shrugged, unhurried. What the fuck? Why are you still so calm then? Risking their lives wasn't something Bao Buping and Chang Hao were afraid of, but right now, they had obtained the inheritance of the 9 forms of Split the Heavens and so many treasures. They were unwilling to die. It's fine, don't panic. We can't run, but we can roll our way out. Long Chen smiled. As he spoke, he raised his saber. A huge saber image tore into the sky and then slashed into the ground. Split the heavens 4. Boom. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were dumbfounded as they watched Long Chen's saber strike the ground. The ground exploded, blowing dust and rocks into the air for 1,000 miles. Let's roll. Bao Buping and Chang Hao now understood. Hiding in their hollow rocks, they shot out with the other flying rocks, rolling down the mountain. Damn, so this was also a method? Why didn't I think of it? Said Bao Buping admiringly. Shoo. Long Chen hastily whispered. As they hid in the hollow stones and were rolling away, a large squad of creatures whistled over their heads. This squad had over 100 members. Bao Buping and Chang Hao felt a burst of fear. These creatures were extremely powerful. In a 1-against-1, Bao Buping wasn't afraid of them, but if he was surrounded by this many, there would be no chance of him getting away. These creatures completely ignored the rolling stones below them as they flew over. Explode. Long Chen suddenly let out a quiet cry, and an explosion erupted where they had been. The creatures rushed over in that direction without hesitation. But when they got there, all they saw was a huge hole. They didn't see a single person. Just as they were wondering what had happened, another explosion echoed in the distance, and they once more shot off. After this repeated several times, they suddenly stopped, seeming to realize something. One of them squatted down and used its claw-like hand to dig out a translucent string thinner than a hair. This thread was impossible to see unless you looked closely. The creature quickly found a talisman connected to it. It had clearly been used and was now garbage. This was something Long Chen had left behind. These talismans came in a set. One was the explosive talisman, while the other was the detonator talisman. The level of this talisman actually wasn't very high. Long Chen had bought them when he first joined the Xiantian Dao sect. Back then, he had felt talismans to be very marvelous and mysterious existences, and so he had bought some to study. As a result, these talismans, which couldn't even kill a sea expansion expert, achieved a heaven-defying effect here. Long Chen had long since put these mechanisms in place, while Chang Hao and Bao Buping didn't even know when he had done it. First, Long Chen caused a disturbance to draw the creatures over, then he detonated a distant talisman. When the creatures reached that place, he detonated the second, forming a cycle to lure the creatures away. Suddenly, one of those creatures let out a furious roar. They knew they had been duped. After that, they rushed back to the first spot, but they didn't see any oddities. By the time they reached that spot, it had already been a full incense stick's worth of time since Long Chen had slashed the ground. The 3 of them had rolled off the mountain and run off without a trace. The leader of the creatures then took out a blood-colored jade talisman and crushed it. Suddenly, Devil Spirit Mountain shook intensely, and an ear-piercing alarm rang throughout every corner of it. Following the alarm, countless creatures swarmed out like hornets whose nest had been poked. Patrols filled heaven and earth. In an instant, all of Devil Spirit Mountain became turbulent as powerful creatures whistled to and fro. Their powerful auras shook the sky. At this time, Long Chen, Bao Buping and Chang Hao were flying as fast as they could. Long Chen, are we supposed to charge out right in the open? We're going to be noticed, shouted Chang Hao as they flew. This was completely different from when they arrived. Long Chen had no intention of being hidden. They weren't even suppressing their auras any longer and were simply flying as fast as they could. There's no other choice. We have to get to the exit before they seal it. Otherwise, we'd be turtles in a jar, said Long Chen. According to his estimates, as long as these creatures weren't complete idiots, the first thing they would do was send experts to seal the exit. But they had a limited number of experts that were close to the exit. If they wanted more, they would need to send assistance from other regions. Right now, they were in a race against time. They had to slaughter their way out of Devil Spirit Mountain before those powerful reinforcements arrived. If they moved as carefully and as slowly as they had when they had arrived, then there really would be zero chance of escaping. The three of them were flying rapidly when they suddenly encountered a group of over 10 creatures. They had powerful fluctuations, and according to the standards of human cultivators, they were probably around the level of a rank 6 or 7 celestial. When those creatures appeared, they immediately spread their bat-like wings and emitted sharp cries as they attacked the three of them. Kill them at full power. We can't slow down. Long Chen had already sent out a blood-colored light with Blood Drinker. 3 of those creatures were instantly killed. Those creatures were unable to block the 3 of them. Under their attacks, they instantly transformed into bloody mist. But this mist wasn't red, it was black. These creatures' blood was black as ink. This world's creatures are only at this level, snorted Bao Buping. Don't worry, there'll probably be an intense battle in a bit, said Long Chen. The 3 of them rushed away, killing 3 waves of creatures trying to block them before they saw the exit. But when they did, Bao Buping and Chang Hao couldn't help but suck in a cold gasp of air. There's too many of them. Bao Buping and Chang Hao felt a chill. Right now, there were thousands of this world's creatures blocking the exit, staring coldly at them. Even Bao Buping and Chang Hao felt their hearts clench in the face of this many of them. It had to be known that while these creatures might have auras similar to the human race's foundation forging realm, their actual combat power was much greater. Their bodies were especially tough, comparable to king items. They were incredibly quick and powerful. Didn't you want to get revenge for the generations of seniors from the heaven-splitting battle sect? Now's the best time. Bring out your full power and let these creatures experience the power of our heaven-splitting battle sect, said Long Chen, battle intent soaring out of him. Long Chen was disgusted with these creatures. They actually used the human race as prey. This was a humiliation to the entire human race. Kill these bastards. Vengeance for the heaven-splitting battle sect's seniors. Bao Buping and Chang Hao both roared, their eyes scarlet as they unleashed their full power. The 2 of them now looked almost insane. They had both thought of that corpse of their senior that they had seen in the pit. They hated these creatures to the core. They charged out, unleashing terrifying power that forced back these creatures. But Bao Buping and Chang Hao were also shocked to find that these creatures were extremely powerful. Practically, each one of them had power comparable to a rank 8 celestial, and when a dozen of them blocked at the same time, they were unable to kill even a single one. Although some of them were vomiting blood, those injuries weren't heavy enough to affect their combat power. The 2 of their attacks had only just landed when a huge blood-red saber image soared into the sky, slashing down with a boundless air of death. Long Chen's sharp attack landed right on the creatures that had just blocked. Nice! Bao Buping and Chang Hao both cheered. Long Chen's attack had been perfectly timed. Those creatures had just blocked their attack and had yet to summon forth more energy before this terrifying attack landed. 7 of them were killed in an instant. But 7 was nothing compared to the army of thousands in front of them. The other creatures let out furious roars and poured forward like the tide, instantly devouring them. Divine Ring. 4-star battle armor. Long Chen's roar was like the roar of a god. A 4-colored divine ring appeared behind him, unleashing boundless pressure. A pillar of light soared into the sky. 4 stars revolved in his eyes, and a powerful chi wave directly blew back the charging creatures. Kill! With a thunderous roar, Long Chen unleashed a mile-long saber image at the creatures. Those powerful creatures were blown apart like tofu in front of Long Chen's attack. Any of them touched by the huge saber image were killed. Bao Buping and Chang Hao also unleashed their full power. They pushed the battle god's sacred cannon to its peak, following behind Long Chen as they slaughtered. Although the creatures did their best to stop them, the three of them were like tigers amongst a crowd of sheep. Anyone who blocked them was mercilessly cut down. Long Chen was being vicious now. Time was pressing. They couldn't waste even a breath's time. Right now, he was finally experiencing how strong he had become after the baptism of the heaven-earth divine pool. He felt inexhaustible energy pouring out of his body. Those creatures in front of him were either slain or blown away. However, there were still too many of them, and they didn't fear death. They continued to pounce on the three of them. As time passed, more and more of them appeared. There was now a sea of them, while Long Chen and the others were like three small boats trying to stay afloat within the turbulent waves. Damn it, there's too many of these bastards. We can't kill them all, cursed Bao Buping. In the beginning, there had only been several thousand of them. But now, although the three of them had killed hundreds, the numbers of their enemies had soared past 10,000 and continued to climb. The only good thing was that the three of them were still rapidly pushing forward, getting closer and closer to the exit. There was less than 100 miles in front of them before they would reach the formation. Once they broke in, they would be able to leave. 100 miles could be crossed with a single step during ordinary times for people on their level. But now, they were blocked by these creatures, and even advancing a single step was difficult. Each slash of Long Chen's saber killed several of the creatures, but it still wasn't enough to keep up with the arrival of reinforcements. The thing that made him feel helpless was that these reinforcements only became stronger. His guess was that the life forms that guarded the border were all low-level life forms, while these new ones were the real elites. The creatures they had seen at the beginning had had black wings. But now some silver-winged ones had started to appear. These silver-winged creatures were several times stronger than the other ones. In a one-against-one, Bao Buping and Chang Hao were unable to kill them within a few moves. Fortunately, their cultivation bases were still equivalent to the human race's foundation forging realm. No Jade Core realm creatures appeared. The three of them pushed forward with difficulty. More and more of the silver-winged creatures were appearing, increasing the pressure of them. But now they were just tens of miles away from the exit. Boom! Suddenly, an explosive sound rang out. A dozen of the silver-winged creatures worked together to push Long Chen back several steps. Damn it! Long Chen's heart shook. To be pushed back while advancing was not just a setback, it would dampen their sharpness. If they continued to be knocked back while advancing, it would become extremely difficult to get to the end. Double Dragon Destruction. Without hesitation, Long Chen's arms shook, and a lightning and flame dragon flew out. The two dragons roared and intertwined, blowing apart the silver-winged creatures. Black blood filled the air and was incinerated. They're weak to lightning and fire? Long Chen was delighted. He had never expected these silver-winged creatures to be so weak to this. Anywhere Lei Long went, the silver-winged creatures would have their bodies turn stiff. Their tough bodies became as weak as a block of ice. Then violet flames would go by, and these creatures were like cold cups that had been thrown into a blazing furnace. They instantly exploded. Anywhere the two dragons went was wiped clean. A huge path appeared in front of them, delighting them. They hastily rushed forward. Suddenly, space rumbled as a large winged devil appeared in the air. Its wings were actually golden. The other creatures immediately opened a path for the golden-winged creature. They were clearly terrified of it. Golden light flowed around it, making this creature look like a golden fiend. Its eyes were completely icy. Despicable human race, die. The golden creature actually spat out human words. It sent a single punch at the three of them. Its fist was also golden. There was some strange energy circulating within it, and space rumbled wherever it passed as if it was being compressed to the limit. Bao Buping and Chang Hao unleashed powerful sword chi at its fist. An explosion caused the world to shake. The ground exploded and dust filled the air. Bao Buping and Chang Hao vomited a mouthful of blood as they were knocked back, almost losing their grip on their weapons. They were filled with shock. This golden creature was absolutely terrifying. Even when the two of them worked together, they weren't able to receive its punch. The golden creature sneered upon punching them away. It let out another punch, this time at Long Chen. "Be careful," cried Bao Buping and Chang Hao. Having experienced its power, they knew that it surpassed their understanding. "Do you think a piece of crap like you is fit to look down on me?" Long Chen sneered. In terms of power, he had never feared anyone. Green Dragon Battle Armor. Long Chen's body became covered in green scales. When his 108,000 scales appeared, his 108,000 immortal platforms began to revolve rapidly. Each one of them corresponded to one of his scales. When his immortal platforms and scales formed a resonance, a mysterious energy appeared, feeling like countless tiny threads connecting all of them. In that instant, Long Chen let out a roar that shook the heavens. His power exploded like a volcano as he sent a punch at the golden creature. A golden fist collided with the green fist. Powerful chi waves erupted in every direction. The surrounding creatures were blown back by the chi waves, and a few of the weaker ones were directly killed. This incredible power was so great that even Bao Buping and Chang Hao had to stab sword chi into the depths of the earth to avoid being blown away. Yet they still coughed up blood. They were injured by their clashing power. The two of them couldn't help being shocked. They hadn't expected this golden creature to be so terrifying. But fortunately, Long Chen was able to fight on even ground against it. They saw their fists still intertwined. Countless ripples were erupting from their fists, soaring like waves clashing against heaven and earth. Clearly, the two of them were constantly increasing their power. With his hair fluttering in the wind, Long Chen looked like a god as he faced that golden creature. The thing that made Bao Buping and Chang Hao uneasy was that the formation just tens of miles away did not shatter after enduring this immense power. It merely quivered ever so slightly. Such immense power was unable to damage the formation. Was it really possible for them to break out of it? A bad feeling rose in their hearts. If they couldn't break the formation, the three of them would die here. Just death was one thing, but they would probably end up being used, turning into those corpses in the pit. Furthermore, all their efforts would have been useless. But now that things had reached this point, their worry had no use. All they could do was place their hopes on Long Chen. They focused themselves, ready to attack at any moment. The golden creature's sneer of disdain had already vanished, replaced with an expression of shock. It couldn't believe Long Chen was this powerful. "Inferior human race, how can you possess such power?" The golden creature icily looked at Long Chen as it spoke, but it continued to increase its power. This time, Bao Buping and Chang Hao clearly saw that this creature wasn't actually speaking the human language. When it opened its mouth, it was able to unleash spiritual fluctuations that expressed its meaning, making it seem like it was speaking their language. "Who do you think you are to look down on the human race? Is the winged devil race so amazing?" sneered Long Chen. The golden creature's expression suddenly changed. "How do you know of the winged devil race?" Long Chen hadn't expected this little test to actually reveal such a secret. So these creatures really were part of the winged devil race. But the previous winged devils he had seen were huge. How were these ones so small? "Idiot, how could I not know? I also know you are nothing more than a brat of the winged devil race. The pure-blooded winged devils are far stronger than you," sneered Long Chen. Although he put on a disdainful expression, he was actually carefully paying attention to this winged devil's countenance. When he spoke, he clearly saw its pupils shrink slightly. It was shocked by his words. Then this meant that this golden creature was likely just a branch of the winged devil race, or perhaps the winged devil race's descendants. Based on its reactions, the skeletons of the winged devils he had seen in the deep abyss of the Jiuli secret realm should be the ancestors of this world's creatures. As for the barbarian race expert, in order to slay those winged devils, he had sacrificed his own life. That must have been something related to a war waged in a time far more ancient than the Dark Era. If these creatures were descendants of the winged devils, then didn't that mean the battle in the Dark Era was related to that previous battle? Yu Shaoqian had said that the so-called Mother Star had collapsed, and the barbarian race had been exterminated. Just what were the causes and consequences of all this? Die. Just as Long Chen was rapidly thinking, the golden creature let out a furious roar, and a ray of light shot out of its forehead and at Long Chen. Long Chen was startled, suddenly recalling that the winged devils condensed their cultivation base in the devil core located at their foreheads. At such a close distance, there was no time for him to dodge. If struck, his head would definitely explode. Bao Buping and Chang Hao's expressions changed. They hadn't expected the golden creature to have such a terrifying attack. Just at this moment, a refined medicinal cauldron appeared in front of Long Chen's head, smashing into the light. This was the ancestral item, the blazing dragon cauldron. After obtaining it from Dan Chu's hands, Long Chen had been nourishing it in his mind sea the entire time. He had used it to refine pills a few times, but after arriving in the heaven-splitting battle sect, he had almost forgotten about it. He hadn't placed a slave mark on the blazing dragon cauldron. It could move on its own, and seeing Long Chen in danger, it actually took its own action to protect him. The light was blown apart, while the blazing dragon cauldron charged at the golden creature. The golden creature jumped in shock. It had absolute confidence in its divine ability. It was confident in using it to kill Long Chen. But instead, this powerful cauldron appeared and suddenly attacked. Its intuition told it that if struck, its head would definitely explode. The golden creature's wings shook, and golden runes lit up around its body. It transformed into a ray of light that shot back at incomparable speed, just narrowly dodging the blazing dragon cauldron's attack. In terms of power, you're far too weak. Does the inferior winged devil race only have this little ability? Sneered Long Chen. He held one of the feet of the blazing dragon cauldron and smashed it at the golden creature. There was no way for him to truly control an ancestral item. As for the blazing dragon cauldron, it hadn't recovered yet. Unless it had no choice, it wouldn't want to use its power either. But with Long Chen's power, a smash from the cauldron wasn't something just anyone could endure. Inferior human race, you dare blaspheme the grand winged devil race? The golden creature let out a furious roar and charged Long Chen. Now Long Chen and the golden creature began a fierce fight in the air, and seeing that they had distanced themselves, the other creatures charged at Bao Buping and Chang Hao. Fuck, do you think I'm a pushover? Raged Bao Buping and Chang Hao. Raising their swords, they started a fierce slaughter. The creatures were slain one by one. But there were too many of them and more were joining in. Right now, their numbers surpassed 20,000. However, no matter how many there were, the number of them that could attack at one time was limited. At any moment, Bao Buping and Chang Hao were only fighting a few dozen of them. There was no danger to their lives for now. Up in the air, seeing the golden creature charging at him, Long Chen suddenly threw the blazing dragon cauldron at it. Fuck off! The golden creature snorted and its wings lit up once more as it prepared to dodge. As a result, the blazing dragon cauldron suddenly grew in size, going from 1 meter to 3,000 meters. It was now a mountain, dumbfounding the golden creature. It was too huge and instantly sealed all his possible dodging paths. Boom! The golden creature felt like a shooting star had smashed into it. It shot to the ground, smashing apart its fellow creatures that it touched. The golden creature vomited up blood, but unexpectedly, its black blood contained some golden color to it. It's forbidden to crap here, shouted Long Chen as he once more smashed the blazing dragon cauldron at the golden creature. The golden creature's hair stood on end from fury, flames almost spurting from its eyes. Its sharp teeth were creaking. All the human race knows how to do is rely on outside power. You're the most shameless race. The golden creature suddenly grabbed its forehead and pulled. That appearance was like it was trying to tear its head in two. Suddenly, a black bone appeared outside the golden creature's forehead. That was its crystal core. A black arrow then shot out of it. As soon as that black arrow appeared, Long Chen felt a chill. He even sensed the blazing dragon cauldron's fear. There's definitely something up with that black arrow. Long Chen's heart shook. This black arrow contained a corrosive aura. For the blazing dragon cauldron to also be afraid of it, it was clearly bizarre. This black arrow made him think of the Yama King blood curse that the corrupt paths expert, Shui Yu, had used on him in the immemorial path. The black arrow also seemed to contain a kind of curse energy. This kind of thing posed a great threat to an item spirit, which was why the blazing dragon cauldron felt fear. Long Chen suddenly realized why these creatures didn't use all the treasures that they gathered. They were probably unable to use them. That was why the golden creature now cursed him for using outside power. This move was definitely targeting his ancestral item. Thinking of this, Long Chen knew what he had to do. With a faint smile, he put away the blazing dragon cauldron and took out a certain black object. Watch how my amazing pot dominates. Long Chen smashed the pot into the black arrow. Boom. The black arrow smashed into the bottom of the pot, causing an explosive sound. The black arrow instantly exploded to bits, while the pot remained fine. All that happened was a bit of rust fell from it. Hee hee, the pot really is mighty. Long Chen laughed. This pot had given him many pleasant surprises. Although he was still unable to use its real power, he was constantly finding out more of its unknown abilities. The blazing dragon cauldron was afraid of the arrow, but the pot wasn't at all. It seemed that its level was far, far greater than the blazing dragon cauldron. Furthermore, this was also the result of Long Chen's guess being correct. The black arrow's power had been strange. The actual power behind it hadn't been great, and its real ability lay in its corrosive curse power. There was no way this kind of curse energy could affect the pot. The black arrow was completely ineffective. Inferior human race, you don't have any real power, so you just rely on your tricks. You're the dirtiest, most shameless life forms. Roared the golden creature furiously. It was furious that this move was useless against the pot, but it was also helpless about it. Idiot, are you a crying shrew? Unable to beat me, you start cursing me? Sneered Long Chen. Now holding the pot, he charged at the golden creature. A single smash of the pot caused the golden creature to be sent flying. The thing that infuriated the golden creature was that the pot was far harder than the blazing dragon cauldron, causing cracks to appear on its fist and its blood to slowly flow out. Inferior dash. Fuck off. The golden creature had just opened its mouth again when Long Chen smashed it with the pot, sending it flying. The golden creature roared repeatedly, but it was unable to do anything to Long Chen. Idiot, stand still. I won't stop until I beat you into a dumpling. Roared Long Chen, repeatedly smashing the pot at the golden creature. The golden creature's fury was soaring. It was unable to do anything to the pot, making it feel helpless. Originally, its power had been equal to Long Chen's. In a direct clash, it would be difficult to determine a winner. But after using its divine ability, it had caused the blazing dragon cauldron to come out and it instantly fell into a disadvantage. Then after using its corrosive black arrow, this damn pot came out. After shooing off a wolf, it attracted a tiger. The golden creature's heart was probably shattering. In front of the incomparably fierce pot-wielding Long Chen, it was forced to retreat over and over again, unable to fight evenly any longer. Seeing Long Chen make the golden creature cover its head and run, not only were the other creatures of this world shocked, but even Bao Buping and Chang Hao were dumbfounded. The current Long Chen looked even more savage and demonic than these creatures. Long Chen, ignore it. Hurry up and open the formation, shouted Chang Hao as he fought intensely. The number of creatures here was still rising, and it was at an even faster rate than before. I can't open the formation, shouted Long Chen in reply. With a wave of his hand, he sent out the blazing dragon cauldron, smashing it into the formation. A water-like barrier appeared in the air as the formation activated. A large mass of ripples materialized where the blazing dragon cauldron had struck it, but the formation didn't break. Instead, the blazing dragon cauldron was knocked back. Do you see? Said Long Chen helplessly as he put away the blazing dragon cauldron and continued to smash the golden creature. Bao Buping and Chang Hao's hearts turned cold. Even with Long Chen's power, even using an ancestral item, he was unable to break the formation. Then there was no chance at all. Fuck, looks like we're going to die here. Then let's bring them down with us, roared Bao Buping. Battle God blessing. Bao Buping and Chang Hao both roared at the same time, and a blood-colored rune appeared on their foreheads. At the same time, runes began to light up all across their skin, looking like a runic armor. In that instant, it felt like two ancient monsters had woken. The Battle God Blessing was the strongest power-increasing art of the Battle God's sacred canon. It was said to allow a person to receive a god's blessing and raise their power as much as possible. But the Battle God Blessing was not suited for a long battle. It only allowed for a brief burst of power. The heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples wouldn't use it until there was no other option. Now, Long Chen had shown that the formation was too powerful for them to escape. So the only thing left to do was to kill as many of these creatures as possible. But what Bao Buping and Chang Hao hadn't expected was that the instant they used the Battle God Blessing, their power burst forth on an unprecedented scale. Their power had been raised far more than it had ever before. A faint halo of light surrounded them, and their power flowed out in torrential waves. A single slash of their swords pierced the creatures around them as easily as a knife going through tofu. What's going on? Bao Buping and Chang Hao were shocked and delighted. When they had used the Battle God Blessing before, their power would double. But now their power had probably increased by 10 times. They had previously been miserably suppressed by these powerful creatures, but now they killed them easily. Long Chen smiled. As expected, the reason those previous two disciples had been able to get out of this formation wasn't because of how powerful they had been, but because this place had the heaven-splitting divine tablet's blessing. The reason why the heaven-splitting divine tablet had appeared on this battlefield back then was because it embodied the battle god's will. Only by activating the Battle God Blessing within the range of the heaven-splitting divine tablet's blessing was it possible to use Split the Heavens to break the formation. As soon as Long Chen had started to fight against the golden creature, he had felt that something was strange. With their power, they could definitely dominate any rank 8 celestials, but the formation hadn't had any problem containing their power. Back then, he had thought there was some problem. But the fact that two of the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples had managed to escape shouldn't be a coincidence. The problem was most likely something to do with Bao Buping and Chang Hao. That was why Long Chen had put on a display of showing the formation's power when the two of them had told him to break it. It was to make them lose any of their expectations. Now that the two of them had used the Battle God Blessing, it all became clear. Long Chen didn't cultivate the Battle God's sacred canon, so he was unable to receive any blessing. If they wanted to break the formation, they would have to depend on the two of them. Together, Bao Buping and Chang Hao suddenly shouted at the same time. They forced back the surrounding creatures with a single slash and flew into the air. Like two arrows, they shot at the golden creature. "Cripple him," roared Bao Buping. With all three of them attacking the golden creature at the same time, they had sealed its paths of retreat. Their swords fell. Boom. The golden creature was currently at a loss from being smashed by Long Chen's pot over and over again. Seeing Bao Buping and Chang Hao attacking, the golden runes on its wings lit up, and it smashed a fist at them. But it had miscalculated. With the Battle God Blessing, their power had increased by 10 times. Their swords instantly blew apart the creature's arm. The creature let out a shrill cry, but that cry was cut off halfway as a pot smashed into the back of its head. The pot directly smashed apart the creature's head. As the head exploded, a small devil core tried to fly away. "I was waiting for you." Long Chen snorted and grabbed the devil core. The devil core had the golden creature's soul within it, and that was what he wanted the most. The devil core suddenly lit up, and it felt like flames were about to erupt from within it. You want to kill yourself? Keep dreaming. Soul sealing art. Long Chen snorted and formed hand seals with one hand. A net formed around Long Chen's hand. This was Long Chen's soul art. The net bound the devil core tightly, and that erupting energy instantly turned calm. In the end, not even a ripple came out of it. In terms of power, the golden creature might be able to fight evenly with Long Chen. But in terms of spiritual strength, They were not even close to the same level. Although Long Chen's skill in soul arts was crude compared to Meng Qi, his spiritual strength was vast like a sea and practically endless. Suppressing the devil core's soul was easy. Damnable human race, you'll pay the price for this. Just at this moment, 3 of the golden creatures appeared, flying over. Long Chen's expression changed slightly. Amongst those 3, 2 had similar auras to the Foundation Forging realm, but there was one whose body was shining like a golden sun. It was an expert on the Jade Core realm. Long Chen sensed a sensation of mortal danger from it. Chang Hao, open the formation. Booping, you unleash a full-strength attack at them to buy me some time. Long Chen's eyes began to shine as he saw these 3 terrifying creatures coming. He put away the black pot. With his left hand holding the elbow of his right arm, he raised his right hand into the air. Flame energy began to circulate, and chanting filled the air. Bao Booping and Chang Hao immediately followed his directions. One charged at the formation, while one stood in front of Long Chen. They both raised their swords high into the air. 2 huge sword images pierced into the sky. Heaven and earth began to shake. Split the heavens 4. Bao Booping and Chang Hao attacked at the same time, unleashing unprecedented power at this moment of life and death. One attacked the formation, while one attacked the creatures. Split the heavens 4. 2 huge heaven-splitting blades mercilessly slashed down from the sky. Bao Booping's sword chi shot straight toward those 3 golden creatures. Boom! The jade core creatures at the front snorted. Its golden claw closed around Bao Booping's sword chi, blowing it apart. But Bao Booping's power with the battle god blessing was also terrifying. The golden creature was knocked back several meters by it, and their advancement was stalled for a moment. Even the other 2 golden creatures were knocked back by the first. Inferior human race, face your deaths. The one at the front roared, and a powerful sound wave shook heaven and earth. This voice contained boundless killing intent. It shot toward Long Chen. The instant Bao Booping attacked, Chang Hao's sword slashed into the formation. What delighted Bao Booping was that this powerful formation actually did tear open. In truth, this formation was extremely powerful. Let alone a Foundation Forging disciple, even a soul transformation expert's full-strength attack wouldn't be able to tear it open. However, the 9 forms of Split the Heavens possessed the will to break apart the heavens. Thus, Split the Heavens possessed an extremely strong barrier-breaking effect. The heaven-suppressing magic sect's magical arts were very powerful, but they didn't dare to show off in front of the heaven-splitting battle sect. Because the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples had split the heavens. When they used the battle god blessing, they could ignore all their magic shields and hack them to death. That was why this formation, which even soul transformation experts would be helpless against, would tear open through Chang Hao's attack. Quick, run! Chang Hao shouted to Bao Booping and Long Chen. As soon as this tear formed, the formation began to slowly close. It would take less than a breath's time before it was fully restored. Bao Booping immediately rushed over. At this time, those golden creatures were also getting closer. None of you will get away. The jade core creature roared, and its body suddenly unleashed blinding light. Like a sun, it covered the entire world in golden runes. Heaven and earth froze. This was an extremely terrifying power. Bao Booping and Chang Hao felt like a mountain had suddenly crashed down on them, and each step was incomparably difficult to take. They couldn't help being shocked. Just what kind of power was this? If we don't leave, will you treat us to a meal? Within this world of golden runes, there was only one spot without them. That spot had a violet sphere like a star that shattered the runes. Long Chen was standing in the air, a 300-meter sphere in his hand. Like a god of flames, he appeared unspeakably domineering. The violet sphere was like the sun, while the golden runes were like snow, instantly melting away. The entire golden world was affected and starting to twist. Well, based on your conduct, I'd say you didn't prepare any good food for us. Then never mind, we're very busy. You can go back. After taking so much of your stuff, I'd feel bad not leaving you with something. Please take this insignificant gift. There's no need to thank me. Long Chen tossed out the huge sphere at the powerful golden creature. Star Fall. The sphere contained boundless destructive power. It was like a star that had reached the end of its life and was about to erupt with its final light. The jade core creature hastily fled. It was unknown what it was shouting, but Long Chen could guess it was telling the other creatures to run. Boom. But they had still underestimated this mysterious magical art that came from the Xiantian catalog. With the added power of the Nirvana scripture, the explosion of the violet sphere caused flames to devour the world. Instead of golden runes, this world became filled with a sea of flames. Those ordinary creatures would be instantly turned to ash, and the elites would last for a breath before dying. Only the golden creatures survived. But their golden bodies had turned black from the flames. While they were able to block the attack, the power of the explosion knocked the two foundation-forging golden creatures unconscious. Only the jade core creature, who had fled far away from the core explosion region of Star Fall, had managed to survive intact. But if it had been struck head-on, it knew it would probably have been killed. Just after Star Fall exploded, over 10 incredibly terrifying auras rose in the distance. A group of huge figures were rushing over. These figures were also golden, but they were now 30 meters tall. Their pressure caused heaven and earth to shake. As soon as they arrived, the surviving golden creature didn't dare to even move. Seeing everything here had been turned into a charred land of death, those creatures let out heaven-shaking roars of fury. One of them had scarlet eyes and stamped on the ground. The ground shattered beneath it, while it shot at the formation like a shooting star. At this time, the tear Changhao had made had increased in size due to the power of Starfall. Furthermore, the formation seemed to have broken because of it, and its self-repairing ability had disappeared. It was like a person who didn't even know how to close their mouth after being slapped in the face. The other creatures were shocked to see one of them charge past the formation. They hastily flew over to stop that one, but they were too late. That terrifying creature charged into the darkness, chasing after Long Chen. Long Chen, Bao Buping and Changhao were fleeing as fast as they could. After unleashing Star Fall, Long Chen had hidden on the other side of the formation with the other two. Star Fall's destructive power had mainly stayed on the outside, so the three of them weren't injured. But they all suddenly felt a sensation of mortal danger lock onto them. Life Star Realm? The three of them were shocked. This aura was clearly something only someone on the Life Star level could possess. Long Chen looked back, and his hair stood on end. He saw a 30-meter figure rapidly getting closer. Its speed was 10 times greater than theirs. Fuck, there's no need to be so courteous as to send us off, right? Cursed Long Chen. Lightning wings appeared on his back, and the king item boots on his feet lit up. He pushed his speed to his peak while grabbing Bao Buping and Changhao. Being pulled by Long Chen, Bao Buping and Changhao's feet left the ground as they whistled through the air so quickly that they couldn't even keep their eyes open. Even dragging them, Long Chen's speed surpassed their peak. Damn it! Long Chen, go faster. It's about to catch up. Bao Buping looked back just in time to see the giant creature get even closer to them. It was about to catch up, causing their faces to turn green. Perhaps they would have the slightest urge to fight if it was just a soul transformation creature. But in front of this terrifying monster, they didn't even have a desire to fight. That was an existence on the level of the old man. Long Chen clenched his teeth and fled for his life. His legs were like two rapidly spinning wheels. But even so, he couldn't compare to that creature's speed. It was still catching up. Fuck, when we came, the distance was so short. Why is it so far now that we're going back? Cursed Long Chen. When they had come, they hadn't felt this space to be so big. But even after rushing for so long, they hadn't reached it. What Long Chen didn't know was that this place also had a formation. Coming in was easy, because the formation shortened the distance so that anyone would quickly enter Devil's Spirit Mountain. But when leaving, the formation wouldn't help. So it felt like the distance had increased by 100 times from the entrance to the formation. We're screwed. Long Chen, your legs are too short. Bao Buping lamented. That creature's legs were 15 meters long, so Long Chen was truly at a disadvantage in a race. Die! That creature suddenly roared and its forehead split open. An arrow shot out at Long Chen. Now, that creature was less than 3,000 meters away, and they were now in its attack range. If this attack landed, the three of them would be instantly turned to dust. Pot, it's all on you. Long Chen threw Bao Buping and Chang Hao to the side while he took out a black pot. He smashed it into the attack. Boom! A heaven-shaking explosion erupted and space crumbled. The three of them felt like a mountain had smashed into them, and they tumbled back into the distance, violently hacking up blood. They didn't know how far they rolled. Their heads were buzzing. Suddenly, a clanking noise rang out as the black pot landed in front of Long Chen, still spinning. Seeing it was fine, Long Chen was delighted. The pot was too amazing. It was actually able to block such a terrifying attack. Die! Long Chen had just blessed his luck that the pot was so strong when a furious roar rang out. That terrifying creature arrived in front of them, unleashing a terrifying fist that sealed all of heaven and earth. Their expressions changed. This terrifying creature fundamentally wasn't something they could handle. Long Chen raised the pot again. Suddenly, space quivered. A blood-colored light soared into the sky, looking like a bloody sun that lit up the world. As soon as that blood-colored light appeared, the creature's killing intent vanished, and an expression of terror appeared on its face. It immediately turned and fled, not even bothering with Long Chen and the others. It's the Sovereign Blood Seal. Long Chen looked at that blood-colored sun in the direction of the Sovereign Blood Seal. At this time, it was unleashing endless light that lit up the world. Divine might filled the entire Devil Spirit Mountain. The Sovereign Blood Seal's light spread, enveloping Long Chen's group of three. Long Chen didn't sense anything odd from it. He simply felt like warm sunlight was bathing his body. But that creature was fleeing as if its life depended on it. It was afraid of even being touched by the light. Despite its speed, it was unable to outrun the divine light. The blood-colored light quickly caught up. The creature let out an unwilling roar, and golden runes lit up all over its body, protecting it. Long Chen was shocked to see that these golden runes had no actual form. They split apart space to form a terrifying defense. Long Chen had never seen such terrifying defensive runes. His guess was that this defense was one of the creature's innate divine abilities. This absolute defense didn't have the slightest use against the blood-colored light. The blood-colored light was like lava shooting through snow. The runes vanished, and the creature let out a miserable scream. In front of their shocked gazes, it was instantly turned to dust. The three of them felt a burst of fear. Originally, Long Chen had estimated that with this powerful defense, the creature would have a 50% chance of escaping alive. At the very least, it should have been able to struggle somewhat. But now he found that in front of the Sovereign Blood Seal, such a terrifying existence didn't have the slightest ability to resist. After the creature was killed, the Sovereign Blood Seal returned to its original appearance as if nothing had happened. But now one of those terrifying creatures had vanished. Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao were filled with shock. The Sovereign Blood Seal was actually this powerful. Then just what level of existence was a sovereign? Just a single seal left behind from over 100,000 years ago that had already started to loosen up was still able to easily kill such a terrifying expert. The three of them stood and bowed respectfully to the Sovereign Blood Seal. They were filled with reverence and gratitude to this sovereign. A sovereign's power could extend through time. A single seal had suppressed Devil Spirit Mountain for tens of thousands of years, making those terrifying creatures unable to enter the martial heaven continent. This kind of domineering power was something anyone would wish for. Let's go. Now they were definitely safe. No matter how many of those creatures there were, they wouldn't dare to be arrogant in front of the Sovereign Blood Seal. They slowly walked over. They quickly saw the two stone pillars again. The Sovereign Blood Seal was still floating calmly between them. As they walked beneath the Sovereign Blood Seal, they all took a deep breath. They looked at the clear sky and blazing sun that they hadn't seen in a long time. They had finally managed to come out alive. After having brushed past death so many times, coming out now made them feel like they had been reborn. They had only just stepped out of Devil Spirit Mountain when dozens of gazes landed on them, filled with shock. Those people were all adventurers who hadn't made their resolve to enter Devil Spirit Mountain or were still adjusting their condition. Seeing the three of them walk out, they were filled with disbelief. There were even some who were emitting unconcealable killing intent and greed. Anyone who walked out of Devil Spirit Mountain had to have amazing treasures of heaven-shaking secrets. The three of them were dyed in black blood, which made it impossible for the others to see their original robes. No one could tell who they were. As soon as they appeared, a group of wild cultivators surrounded them. One of them was a jade core expert who immediately unleashed his powerful aura and extended a hand at them without even saying a word, wanting to capture them alive. Long Chen didn't even look at that person. He swung his hand, and that jade core expert didn't even have a chance to make a sound before being blown to bloody mist. The others surrounding them couldn't help being appalled. A jade core expert was killed with the wave of a hand. Just how strong were they? Scram! Bao Buping shouted coldly, and a powerful chi wave blew away the people surrounding them. Two unlucky fellows were knocked unconscious just from that. Just because the three of them had been bullied in Devil Spirit Mountain didn't mean that they were weak. These people here were nothing more than rank 3 or rank 4 celestials. They were nothing to Long Chen and the others. You want to rob me? Fucking dog eyes, cursed Chang Hao. Long Chen's slap, Bao Buping's roar, and Chang Hao's cursing immediately suppressed everyone. Those wild cultivators instantly realized that the fact that these three could walk out of Devil Spirit Mountain wasn't because of just luck. Isn't that one Long Chen? Suddenly, one of the cultivators let out a startled cry upon recognizing Long Chen. Long Chen's name was already famous within the cultivation world. He was a complete oddity. He wasn't a celestial but was able to contend with top heavenly geniuses. His name had been especially resounding due to what happened in the Eastern Sea and the battles after the Four Nations' ancient remnant. He had ignored the threat of the ancient races and killed his way out of the encirclement of countless soul transformation experts to leave the Grand Xia. His name had reached the point that practically all cultivators in this region knew his name. Later, because he had entered the heaven-splitting battle sect, things had calmed down slightly. But now, all these cultivators were shocked to see him here. As for Bao Buping and Chang Hao who came from the heaven-splitting battle sect, they were covered in blood and there was no way to tell anything from their robes. Just the swords on their backs weren't able to show their status. Just as everyone was shocked, the space behind Long Chen transformed into a water screen. A sharp blade silently stabbed toward his back. It happened so suddenly that Bao Buping and Chang Hao didn't react at all. Their attention was fixed on the shocked cultivators. Sparks flew as the sharp sword was suddenly blocked by a black pot. At the same time, Long Chen slashed out Blood Drinker in his right hand, tearing through the space behind him. This slash of his also came suddenly as if he had been expecting this. Only now did Bao Buping and Chang Hao react. They hastily turned back to see Long Chen's saber slash down, and that sharp blade which was floating in the air pulled back to block. Boom! The blade blocked Long Chen's saber, and that water curtain blew apart, revealing a seemingly ordinary man in gray robes. He looked completely ordinary. If tossed into a crowd, it would be impossible to find him again. At this time, he had a hint of shock in his eyes. The Bloodkill Hall just refuses to go away. Since that's the case, you can stay behind. Long Chen smiled coldly, and stamping on the ground, he shot forward, slashing his saber down with both hands. After being entangled with the Bloodkill Hall's assassins for so many years, Long Chen was extremely sensitive to their auras. As soon as the three of them had walked out of Devil Spirit Mountain, he had felt that he had been locked onto. The reason he hadn't said anything was because he had been waiting for the attack. After all, not all assassins were like those twin Bloodkill 10 assassins who were capable of canceling out each other's killing intent and auras. No matter how amazing the assassin, they wouldn't have anywhere to hide in front of the 9-star Hegemon body art senses once they attacked. Long Chen's first attack tore apart the assassin's concealment, while his second attack was a killing blow. The assassin had nowhere to go. With a cold snort, he raised his sword to block. A water-like barrier appeared on it, and with an explosive sound, the mist suddenly shot out, filling the air. The mist instantly covered the area around them. Within this mist, it was impossible to even see your own fingers if you waved your hand in front of your face. All you could see was the white mist. Even divine sense couldn't pierce this mist. Bao Buping and Chang Hao were startled. Within this mist, they were blind, unable to see or sense anything. Boom. Suddenly, the mist blew apart, and people could see Long Chen attacking the assassin. The assassin had blood pouring out of his chest and dripping out of his mouth. He had a shocked expression as he flew back. "You can see through my heart bewilderment mist?" The assassin couldn't believe it. He was a powerful water element cultivator, and the mist formed by his water chi wouldn't scatter no matter how strong the wind was. It could block sight and isolate divine sense. Within the mist, others were blind while he could see clearly. Countless experts had died unwillingly within his mist. The mist could be scattered through great explosive and destructive power, but anyone who did that actually fell into his trap. The instant they unleashed that powerful attack, he would launch a fatal attack. At first, Long Chen had also been like the other experts he had slain. The first thing he had tried was using his aura to blow apart the mist. And the assassin had been waiting just for that moment to launch a silent sneak attack. But just as he had been about to attack, he saw that the energy Long Chen had been accumulating hadn't been to blow apart the mist. Instead, a powerful saber had slashed toward him. He had actually fallen for Long Chen's trap. Long Chen's attack caused him to vomit blood and shoot back. If he hadn't been strong enough, this attack would have killed him. "Split the heavens 3. Long Chen's reply was another ruthless attack. The blood-colored saber image mercilessly fell from the sky at the worst possible moment for the assassin. The assassin took a deep breath. Runes suddenly materialized behind him, forming a sea of runes. 9 dots of light appeared within the runic sea. A powerful aura soared into the sky. When this runic sea appeared, the assassin seemed to become a completely different person. A slash of his sword broke Long Chen's saber image. Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao were all shocked. A rank 9 celestial? The Bloodkill Hall's assassin summoned his manifestation for just a moment before pulling it back as if nothing had happened. But Long Chen, Bao Buping, and Chang Hao were all shocked. Although they hadn't managed to see his manifestation clearly, they were sure he was a terrifying rank 9 celestial. "Regretfully, I can't have an all-out fight with you here. Hopefully you can escape this calamity, or I'd have stalled my advancement to the Jade Core realm for nothing. Remember me, I am Bloodkill 9, and if you live past today, I will take your head next time." The assassin emotionlessly looked at Long Chen. After saying that, the mist covered his body, and he disappeared in front of all of them. Even Long Chen didn't sense how he had left. What a powerful assassin! Bao Buping and Chang Hao were shocked. This was their first time seeing a rank 9 celestial. And this rank 9 celestial was actually an assassin. Long Chen narrowed his eyes. He recalled how the twin assassins in the Four Nations Ancient Remnant had told him that they, Bloodkill 10, were the strongest assassins in this region. The assassins ranked higher than them weren't in this region. But Bloodkill 9 had suddenly appeared. That meant that Bloodkill Hall had mobilized him from some other place. Furthermore, based on his words, he seemed to have even stalled his chance to advance to the Jade Core realm to kill him. Was this to say that the assassins above Bloodkill 9 had already advanced to the Jade Core realm, or even higher? Why did he stop fighting? Bao Buping and Chang Hao were a bit flabbergasted. They had wanted to experience the true power of a rank 9 celestial. "Long Chen, people have reported you as being a heaven Caesar and have entrusted me with investigating this matter. It'd be best for you to be sensible and willingly go with us. Otherwise..." Suddenly, a cold shout rang out, and dozens of figures surrounded the entrance to Devil Spirit Mountain. When they saw those figures, Bao Buping and Chang Hao's expressions changed. There were several amongst those people who were Life Star experts. The person at the front wore violet gold robes with the marking of the Pill Tower on them. Only a tower master was qualified to wear such robes. Long Chen had only ever seen Dan Ting wear such clothes. However, this person wasn't Dan Ting. Instead, he was an icy-faced man with shoulder-length hair who appeared to be around 40 years old. This middle-aged man had several life-star experts around him, and one of them was surprisingly someone Long Chen recognized, the heaven-suppressing magic sect's vice-sect master, Ma Xingkong. Other than Ma Xingkong, Long Chen didn't recognize any of them, but based on the way they carried themselves, they were probably the masters of their sects or on that level. Other than them, there were 5 large, especially arrogant experts. Those were experts from the ancient races. A total of 13 life star experts and over 50 soul transformation experts. Such a terrifying lineup caused Bao Buping and Chang Hao to jump in fright. Are all of you here just to capture me? You really look highly on me. Long Chen calmly smiled, clasping his hands behind his back. The person at the front was actually Dan Teng's little brother. As for Dan Teng, he had disappeared from this world. Due to that foolish child, Dan Chu, who had exposed all the secrets to Long Chen in the 4 nations' ancient remnant, the entire cultivation world had been shaken. Dan Teng had abused his position to interfere in the matters of the 4 ancient nations. That was a huge crime. Then adding on how he had been preparing to support the Grand Han in controlling the 4 nations, he had left himself with no path for leniency. Even though he was the Tower Master, he hadn't been able to bear Pill Valley's fury. In order to appease the masses, Pill Valley had announced that Dan Ting had been executed. It went without saying that Pill Valley was truly ruthless. Even a Tower Master, a Grand Life Star expert, could be killed by them. That had managed to shut everyone's mouths, including the Huayan sect. There was no longer any way to find trouble for them over this matter. Now that Dan Teng was dead, all the responsibility was pushed onto him, and the matter was brought to a close. But Dan Teng's death caused quite a few waves within Pill Valley. The main bloodline of Dan Teng's family was exceptionally furious. But they didn't dare to release that anger on Pill Valley, so they placed all of it on Long Chen. This new Tower Master's name was Dan Xing. He was Dan Teng's little brother and had been promoted to take over Dan Teng's Pill Tower. Dan Xing had only just been promoted when he started to target Long Chen. In truth, killing Long Chen was a minor thing. As long as they properly did it in secret with the Pill Tower's power, they could easily crush a foundation forging ant. But Dan Xing's goal wasn't just to kill Long Chen. He wanted to kill Long Chen as an example to others, to win back the Dan family's honor. Otherwise, the Dan family's position in Pill Valley would fall. Killing Long Chen now wasn't just to avenge their enmity with him, but more for political reasons. Behind Dan Sheng was his entire family supporting him. Long Chen, Bao Buping sent a transmission to Long Chen. Don't speak. Long Chen directly opened his mouth. He knew what Bao Buping wanted to say. But he had plenty of experience when it came to handling something like this, and he knew what to do. As for Bao Buping's spiritual message, there was no way it would escape the senses of these wily old foxes. Long Chen, are you going to let us capture you willingly? Dan Sheng icily stared at Long Chen, his expression calm. However, his killing intent could not be concealed, as he hated Long Chen to the bone. He wanted to crush Long Chen right here and now. But he couldn't do that, because he needed a reason. A righteous reason. Go with you willingly? A person who can make me do such a thing has yet to be born. Who do you think you are to dare ask me such a thing? Sneered Long Chen. Little brat, do you want to try saying that again? Raged Dan Sheng. Old bastard, even if I say it again, what can you do to me? Long Chen directly pointed at his nose and cursed. You arrogant brat, I can't watch any longer. Today, I'll teach you how a junior should respect his seniors in Li Tianxuan's place. Suddenly, a shout rang out, and a figure appeared in front of Long Chen like it had teleported. A large hand reached toward his throat. The attacker was the heaven-suppressing magic sect's Ma Xingkong. At this time, Ma Xingkong's face was twisted in hatred. His hatred for Long Chen was even greater than Dan Sheng's. Last time when he had gone to the Shen Dao sect as a display of might, instead of showing off the power of the heaven-suppressing magic sect, His disciples had been killed and he had left in defeat. He had even gambled away a huge amount of resources, as well as his own life star bead. However, the worst thing was that slap in the end. It was a stain that he would never be able to wipe away, so he wanted Long Chen dead even more than Dan Sheng. He directly reached for Long Chen's throat, and the pressure of the life star realm crashed down upon him, freezing heaven and earth. Long Chen smiled coldly. Last time, his cultivation base had been too low, and he had been like a fish that could only allow itself to be slaughtered. But now, he clearly felt that he was not so helpless. As long as he wanted to and used his full power, well, although he wouldn't say that he could block him, he definitely could lift a finger, unlike last time. However, he didn't have any intention of dodging. Instead, he just looked at Ma Xingkong with his cold smile, no fear in his eyes. The only thing there was contempt. Ma Xingkong clearly saw that expression. He thought that Long Chen had simply accepted his helplessness and was doing this to infuriate him so that he would kill him quickly. Ma Xingkong smiled. That smile was savage and pleased. He could already imagine the sight of Long Chen being tortured and begging for release. "Brat, don't vainly think you can get me to kill you so easily." Ma Xingkong sneered, his hand continuing to Long Chen's throat. Bao Buping and Chang Hao both slashed their swords at Ma Xingkong. However, within Ma Xingkong's domain, moving was extremely taxing and their movements were sluggish. There was no way for them to compare to Ma Xingkong's lightning-like speed. Yet even so, their movements caused the other experts to be surprised. Even kings would be unable to move within the domain of a life star expert. As for soul transformation experts, their movements would be heavily suppressed. As for Bao Buping and Chang Hao, they were merely foundation-forging disciples. For them to be able to move in this domain was truly surprising. Some of them were envious and formed an urge to kill both of them. Talented geniuses needed to be put down while they were still growing, or they would eventually become terrifyingly powerful enemies. The ancient race's experts exchanged a look. They had already made their determination to get rid of Bao Buping and Chang Hao here. They definitely wouldn't allow them to grow. The ancient races hated the heaven-splitting battle sect. Ever since ancient times, the heaven-splitting battle sect hadn't given them face. They were incredibly direct, and if you irritated them even slightly, they would start fighting. With how the ancient races like to be arrogant and call themselves hegemons, they had suffered quite a bit in several fights against the heaven-splitting battle sect. And last time, 7 of their life star experts had gone to the heaven-splitting battle sect to force them to hand over Long Chen, but unexpectedly, the heaven-splitting battle sect actually fought to protect him, and 3 of their experts were slain. 4 had run away, but one of them was only left with a Yuan spirit. Furthermore, that Yuan spirit had been heavily injured, and there had been no choice but to seal it so it could slowly heal. It was unknown how much time it would take for it to recover. And even if it did, after finding a suitable body, that expert's cultivation base would be limited. It would probably only ever possess the power of the peak soul transformation realm. That was a vicious slap in their face. Now seeing Bao Buping and Chang Hao possess such power, they definitely had to kill them. They decided that in a bit, they would attack to capture Long Chen and, accidentally, kill them. When the time came, the Pill Tower would have to handle that debt, because they had been called over by the Pill Tower. Just as the ancient race experts were scheming on how to kill Bao Buping and Chang Hao, Ma Xingkong's hand arrived right in front of Long Chen. Scram! A cold shout rang out, and a huge broadsword slashed through space at a crafty angle at Ma Xingkong. Ma Xingkong was shocked. This attack came too suddenly and without any warning. He hastily formed a hand seal, and a huge shield appeared in front of him to block the sword. Just as Ma Xingkong's focus turned to block that huge sword, Long Chen, who was still coldly smiling and hadn't moved, suddenly swung his hand, slapping Ma Xingkong across the face. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.